Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing European GT3 Series for 2021, as brought to you on Assetto Corsa Competizione on the PC platform. This, of course, is Season 2 of the ever-growing series, and tonight marks Round 5 of the 8-round calendar. This series brought to you by NXTGEN Racing, of course, in collaboration with both the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy, and as you can see on the screen here, tonight's schedule is as follows. Times are in British Summertime and UTC +1. At 25 minutes past 7 today, so in approximately 15 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the driver's briefing, where we'll be hearing from our lead driver steward and organiser for the series, Kevin Smith, who will be laying down the law with regards to tonight's race and any special rules in place and any major considerations that our drivers need to be aware of. After the driver's briefing, we'll be getting into qualifying at 7:30, the 15-minute session to determine who will be on pole and how our grid will line up, and then at 7:45, we'll be getting underway with the 75-minute feature race, as our drivers will be taken to the circuit and battling to get the most points possible. After that, of course, when we finish the race at approximately 9 o'clock this evening, we'll be bringing you the post-race podium interviews with our top three and hearing their thoughts on what has been either a good, a bad or a middle ground race. In the commentary box tonight, you have myself, of course, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And tonight's broadcast is being brought to you on 3 media platforms. Firstly, you can tune in using the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, that's NXTGEN Racing on YouTube. Alternatively, you can go to Facebook, NXTGEN Racing on Facebook under groups, and you'll be able to find the broadcast there. Or if you're inclined to use Twitch, you can also catch this broadcast on my own personal Twitch channel, that is twitch.tv/TX141. Now, coming away from our broadcast media to our 2 principal partners for this series, without whom it would not be possible to bring you all of this race in action and the fantastic series that we've had so far, and continues to prove absolutely wild and unexpectedly dramatic on each and every turn. We start off, of course, with the SimGrid. Now, who are the SimGrid, you may ask? Well, the SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for both Assetto Corsa Competizione on PC and also R Factor 2. But our focus, of course, is on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and the SimGrid have provided us with assistance with regards to the organisation, and also we do have members of the stewarding team from the SimGrid who are helping us out with our trackside stewarding and our post-race stewarding as well, and we're very grateful to have them on board. We've also got Coach Dave Academy working with us as part of this series, and Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Whether you're looking to gain a whole second, a tenth of a second, alternatively just find a way of setting up the car to be more comfortable for your preferred driving style, Coach Dave Academy is the place you want to go to. And Coach Dave Academy have been supporting us in this series by providing a good number of the prizes within the prize pool, whether it's a win in a race or alternatively come the end of the championship. There are plenty of Coach Dave Academy setups for our drivers at hand, and of course they'll all be endeavouring to try and claim a number of those over the course of the series, which may help them in tuning specific cars, whether it's the current car they're racing or another car they're looking at in the future. Now, coming away from our partners then on to the calendar itself, we can see that we have just gone into the second half of the season. We've completed 4 of the 8 rounds. Last time out, of course, a week ago on the 28th of September 2021, we were over in Italy at Monza for what was a rather dramatic race. It saw a shake-up of the grid, particularly in both qualifying and at the start of the race, where Monza turn 1, lap 1 struck our drivers. Indeed, we saw a number of drivers who potentially had a very good chance to run away with some very strong results end up falling by the wayside. We did, of course, have the retirement of Ethan Faulkner very early on in the race after a good start, seeing him lose it come the run out of turn number 2, and we also saw other drivers such as Kieran Prendergast as well getting involved in incidents. But now we move back to the United Kingdom once again. I should say we seem to be oscillating from Europe back to the United Kingdom literally of each and every race, and we are today at the home of British motorsport. It is the Silverstone circuit. The 5th of October 2021 today, and we are indeed right in the heartlands of the United Kingdom for a circuit that many of you will know, many of you will love. You'll have seen it in multiple series, where it's the GT World Challenge Series in the real world or in the sim racing environments, alternatively Formula 1, you name it, the car has been raced there, and the series has most likely used Silverstone at some point, and we are at the British circuit today. Now, coming on to our championship standings, after the Monza round, of course, we have seen a shake-up in terms of at the very top of the championship. It is getting closer and closer between our championship leader, the Spaniard of Andres Mesa, who had to make a significant recovery drive in the end in order to come home in P2, and it was a 5-second penalty, which was literally the difference between him and Harry Phillips over the course of the pit window. And still, the AMR V8 Vantage driver, the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage driver from Distinct GG, leading by 3 points, but every point is critical. And you could feel a degree of frustration off of Mesa come the end of the race, but indeed he will settle back down tonight and we're looking to carry on the momentum that is behind him. Harry Phillips, meanwhile, in P2 in the Bentley Continental GT3, being our first repeat winner of the series, now having 2 wins to his name compared to Mesa's 1 and also Prendergast's 1, and it is the case that Phillips is hot on the heels of the Spaniard, the Briton, doing everything he can to try and take the lead of Mesa as we go into that second half. Ralph Piringer moving up to P3 with a fantastic drive at Monza. The BMW M6 driver really springs surprises on most drives and with a very consistent amount of form right now. You have to imagine that now he is in the lead position in P3 on 245 points with 15 point advantage over Marcus Fox. Will he be able to extend that lead tonight? But still, we should not count out Marcus Fox, the Austrian driver who has done a fantastic job in the Porsche 911 GT3R 2019 machine in getting up into P4 with 230 points to his name. Another brilliant result, a great finish, well inside the top 10 at Monza. Indeed, Fox has been one of the most consistent drivers out there, finishing in the top 10 practically every time so far. And Kieran Prendergast, meanwhile, down in P5 on 219 points. He'll know that last time out at Monza it was a missed opportunity, but the Ferrari driver will come back strong, we suspect. Paco Lara as well, another name to get familiar with the fact that we saw Lara have their best result of the season at Monza last time out, now on 208 points, moving up to P6 and 4 points ahead of Ethan Faulkner down in P7, who I unfortunately have to announce is retiring from this series as of the end of round 4 due to personal circumstances. But we do wish Ethan Faulkner, the Irishman, all of the best, and we hope to see him return in a future iteration of this series or another series brought to you by NXTGEN Racing. But Faulkner will no longer be taken to the circuit in this series from round 5 onwards. Fabio Chiena, as a result, in P8 is now only 10 points off of Faulkner and will be looking to jump up into P7 or higher tonight. Chiena, another driver who has done very well, and indeed with the V8 Vantage by his side, you can imagine he'll be using the horsepower of that Aston Martin as much as he possibly can. And Rainer Effenstede and Martin Ulrich, both there inside the top 10, P9 and P10 respectively, and only 2 points separating the two drivers, and we have to wonder whether they'll come to blows here today. Just outside of the top 10, running down to our top 20 then, we can see Lucas Seidel there in P11 on 157 points. After some good momentum at the start of the series, it has started to fall by the wayside, and Seidel will be looking to try and build up a bit more momentum tonight on those 157 points. And we'll see Andre Jacqueline, who'll be running a new livery as tonight. Keep an eye out for his livery. The Slovenian will be taken to the circuit, of course, in his Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage. And on 154 points, he would love an opportunity to creep into the top 10 come the end of tonight's racing when the standings are updated. Unfortunately, we'll not be seeing P13 man Emil Blaine take to the circuit tonight due to personal circumstances, but I can assure you he will be back in a future race, most likely in round number 6, and I'm sure he'll be watching tonight from his personal residence and keeping an eye on things and wondering whether his rivals will be able to pip him on 147 points after a brilliant series of overtakes from Emil Blaine last time out at Monza, and really one of the drives of the evening with his overtaking tenacity, and it's unfortunately won't be seeing him here. Christian Absalassa there in P14 on 140 points. Another Aston Martin driver there, keeping a consistent form. We expect that to continue from Absalassa. And as we move a little bit further down the order, we can see there in P19, Gareth Mills, the South African driver in the McLaren 720S GT3, 116 points, only 1 point off of Walter Lux. Will he be able to make some more ground tonight? We have seen that Mills has had a consistent set of performances that have gradually got better over the first half of the season. Can he carry on that form, or will it be a degree too far? As we look outside of our top 20 then, from 21st to 30th, we can see the chopping and changing of some drivers here. For example, Max Malliard in P24 with an absolutely fantastic result at Monza and one of his season best results, if not his season best. And you can see the second of the Jochen Sveizer drivers is now on 94 points up to P24 and is gradually building that momentum. Only 1 point off a fellow BMW M6 driver, Jesse Monrose, and he would love an opportunity to take on the Frenchman tonight. A bit further down there, we can see we've got Brandon Warren, Nissan GTR driver, the man who dares to tame the Japanese beast that is the Nissan GTR Nismo machine. He's in P29 after a decent result at Monza on 74 points, only 3 points off of Martin Pavusen, who we have unfortunately seen retire from this series, and therefore his next target is 13 points up the road, and that's Timofeo in P27. And Marco Ticini there in P30 on 70 points, and we'll be looking to try and get some points on the board if he is at trackside today. Meanwhile, looking down from 31st to 40th there, we can see our debutant last time out in P31. That is, of course, Gaz Williams there, known in short as Gaz. Starting off very well with a fantastic result on his debut, finishing inside the top 10. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he was the driver who finished well inside the top 5 in the end. And the Bentley Continental driver sprung a surprise for many down in the paddock. And you have to imagine he would love another opportunity to spring some surprises tonight. And that's 62 points after his first race in this series. So he's got a deficit. How high can he climb come the end of the season? That is the big question. We also see the return tonight of Tom Gander, our P33 driver there in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. On 53 points currently, and he'll be looking to get some points on the board today. And looking further down, we will also see the return after his debut at Monza of Nesta Mejia there, the El Salvadorian, who has 24 points to his name. It was a bit of a character building experience last time out at Monza, a number of instances which Nesta was involved in, and he will be looking to learn each and every lap and every race he goes into. And then just looking outside of our top 40 to our final 3 drivers here, who we have unfortunately seen 2 of them retire from the series, and one who I believe has yet to attend, or at least not recently attend, Simon Huber there in P41 on -5 points as it currently stands. Now, coming away from our standings to the circuit then, we are tonight, of course, at the Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire in United Kingdom, consisting of 18 corners here, and this image provided to us by Alex J from wikipedia.org. We're very grateful for the circuit diagrams and maps provided to us by Wikipedia, and what we can see here, consisting of 18 corners, and this is a circuit all about apex speed. You want to maintain the highest possible apex speed through all of the corners here. It is a circuit where at least medium downforce, if not high downforce, is required, and our drivers will be looking to get the best possible speeds through the medium speed sweepers, whether it be through turn 1 at Abbey, alternatively the legendary Cops corner at turn number 9. Legendary for some rather interesting instance recently in Formula 1, you could argue, but throughout the years it has been a corner where we have seen titanic battles, and we of course do have the long straights of both the Wellington straight running from turn 5 to turn 6 and the Hanger straight running from Chapel corner at turn 14 through to Stowe corner at turn 15. There's a little something for everyone here, but downforce is the name of the game and apex speed is the target. Now, as for our rules tonight, we have the same rule set as been applying over the course of the season so far, which is we are using the base 2020 variant of the balanced performance settings as featured in Assetto Corsa Competizione on PC, and in the race there is that mandatory pit stop, which will require at least 1 litre of fuel to go in the car, and changing tyres is optional. Drivers must select as they're willing to do so, and there is no defined pit window. Drivers may choose when to pit. Now, shortly we will be bringing you the driver's briefing. That's all of our rules and instructions covered. But as we turn to the live cameras, you do know about the British weather in the autumn can be highly unpredictable. Well, it is the case that right now we have got some moderate rain here at the British circuit as we see all of our drivers coming to the gradual conclusion of their current free practice session. They'll be asked to jump into the pits within the next 2 minutes for that driver's briefing. They'll be required to head up to the briefing room, albeit the virtual Discord briefing room, as we see here Gaz Williams making his way around through turns 2 and into 3 and 4 right now. Indeed, all eyes will be on the Bentley driver here for the simple reason that he does seem to be a Titan who has come out of nowhere, and the number 90 car looking very fetching indeed as he makes his way through turn 5 and on to the Wellington straight. Now, we're checking with you guys and girls, of course, in the chat. We can see Emil Blaine there in the YouTube chat saying, "Had a blast last race. A shame he can't participate this evening. Hopefully he does not fall too far behind in the standings." We've also got in the Facebook chat there, Katie saying, "I need a zoom button to read the table." Good job you're reading it. Yes, unfortunately, it is the case that with the table, we do have a lot of names to try and fit in, so we have had to try and squeeze them in as best as possible there. But I'm very unfortunate we're not able to do that there. But it's no problem, and we'll keep reading that out to you where we can, Katie. And we can also see their NXTGEN Ultra saying, "Weather on point for Britain's weather today." Indeed, well, I can tell you where I'm based right now in the south of England, we have had sunshine, rain, and I believe further up towards Northamptonshire, pretty much this is very close to what the weather is currently like there, albeit perhaps a little bit earlier in the day at approximately 1:15. But as we see our drivers taking their way around the circuit right now, they'll shortly be all heading to the pits. And the drivers' briefing room right now is starting to fill up with some of our drivers, and very shortly we will be heading in there to hear what's going on. I'm just keeping my eyes on it right now. But I hope to all you guys and girls who are tuning in right now, you're all doing well. You've had a good start to your respective weeks. With it being Tuesday, we're almost at the hump day of Wednesday. And indeed, once we got past that, we haven't got long to go until the weekend. And I hope you're all smiling as we head into October and how the year has flown by for everyone, including our drivers. It doesn't feel as though it's been 2021, but we are flying into the 10th month of the calendar so far, as all our drivers are now making their way around and starting to come back into the pit lane. But I hope it's all smiles, and do not be shy. Feel free to say hi if you do have the ability to do so, as we are going to jump into the drivers' briefing room now, and we are going to listen out for exactly what is going to be said from Kevin Smith. So as we jump in there, we are now waiting for Kevin Smith to come on into the room, and it's one of those situations right now where everybody is itching to go racing. So you can imagine that it's one of those situations where they want Kevin just to come in, give the quick rules and give a quick overview, and hopefully there's no special rules, and then just let them be released to their own devices. You get absolutely itchy when there's only 5 minutes to go before qualifying. You just want to get your head down and get racing. The tension is absolutely building, and right now everybody's still making their way in. They're almost ready for that briefing, and I'm just keeping my eyes out right now. Everybody is piling into the room. Obviously you can't see this, but I'm just giving you the verbal update, and we are waiting for Smith to walk on in. Now, whilst we're doing so, I can tell you that with regards to this weather, it will change the dynamic of the circuit somewhat. It will be the case that it's going to be a difficult circuit to attack, but I think here come the words of Kevin Smith himself. He is in the room right now and just getting ready to give the rules.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for round 5 here at Silverstone with ourselves at NXTGEN Racing. As you are all aware, it is a wet race tonight. We do expect it to rain throughout the full race. There may be a slight variation in the rain heaviness as we progress due to the weather change, but we will see how that goes. As you are all aware, there's no return to garage to be used during qualifying. You can pull into the pit lane once you pass the pit limiter speed. Then you can use the return to garage, but only in the pit lane. Also, with it being wet, please try and give yourselves plenty of space during qualifying on your outlap. There are 25 of yous on circuit tonight, so should be plenty of room there for yous to get well spaced out to not impede your own laps or anyone else's. Please remember there's one mandatory pit stop. Tyres are optional, but you must take a minimum of 1 litre of fuel. In regards to last week's incident, it was deemed a racing incident. This was submitted post-race, and also the appeal which was submitted was declined. Please be on the start. Please bear in mind, especially turn 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 until you get onto Hanger Straight. Bear in mind the cars around you as well. It is wet and it's very easy to lock up the brakes, as some of you may know. So please bear this in mind, and of course let's try and keep a nice clean race throughout for everyone. And I believe that is it, everyone. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. If not, you are free to leave the room, and qualifying will begin in 2 minutes. Good luck, everyone.
Okay, and with those words there from Kevin Smith, of course, our senior organiser for the GT3 Series and one of our stewards, he'll be jumping back into the stewarding box, I'm sure, as we make our way back into the commentary box right now. What I can tell you is that with those rules, nothing special there. Of course, drivers are being advised to take it just a little bit easy, particularly given the conditions and the fact that turns 1 through to 5 are very tight on the opening lap. Their corners, particularly turns 3 and 4, where you've got 2 very heavy braking zones, and drivers will like to put it up the inside into those corners, and in these conditions you can imagine we could end up with some very close-knit racing and potentially even a bit of door-to-door action. Now, if you're wondering what the reference was with regards to the incident and the appeal, I believe that was for the incident up front going into turn 1 and 2 on lap 1 at Monza last time around, and it has been deemed a racing incident. So as a result, it is the case that there's nothing else in terms of drama or dramatics there to be applied into the racing tonight, and now we are waiting to go racing. As we can see, all of our drivers just parked up and ready and raring to go, and we see Victor Solera meanwhile just making his way around on the circuit right now, just getting in a little bit more of a warm-up here as he comes out of the final corner and heads his way down towards turn 1 once again here. We've got a couple of drivers making their way around, and we did have the chance to catch up with a good number of drivers in the build-up to tonight, and also on top of that, did have the opportunity to get some insights with regards to some new liveries our drivers will be running, and we'll be talking about those. But we are now about to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for quali. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, 15 minutes, and as all of our drivers take to the wet circuit of Silverstone with a little bit of a crosswind as well, you can imagine that right now tempers are going to be nice and cool as they're just trying to get themselves warmed up on their outlaps and doing everything they can to sight a relatively dry line, or ideally a line where the water's been shifted, so that way they are able to start to build up a little bit more speed and get building up towards those qualifying laps. Now, when I say that, of course, we do have at this point in time 25 to 26 drivers taken to the circuit. We may have a couple more join us, but I think that is the maximum we're going to have, around 25, 26. And it is the case right now as they all make their way around. We do have Adrian Loisinger here coming out of the pits of the Dream Pace Racing team in the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage, of course, as he comes charging through here. What is turns 11, 12, 13 and 14 as he comes through there. That's turn 12 and then heading into 13 before 14 and then heading on to the hangar straight. And as he comes through, it's been a good season so far for Loisinger. Still plenty out there, I reckon, and he will be looking to build up a bit more momentum tonight. And we'll surely be bringing you an onboard lap with some of our drivers here in terms of giving you an idea of what it's like to race around this British circuit, as we see Gaz Williams here making his way through turn 1. But speaking of drivers who are coming around right now, we jump away from Williams here to look at Andres Mesa, who currently tucked in behind Harry Phillips. And what Andres Mesa was saying to me in the build up to tonight, our championship leader, who's now only leading by 3 points over the driver who's right in front of him. Of course, the Distinct GG driver is looking forward to tonight. He's been feeling confident after doing some practice in the wet conditions, but he's afraid he'll see a very strong Phillips in his Bentley ahead of him. Indeed, he's got an eye full of the Bentley of Phillips right ahead, but I think as well he's keeping an eye on his championship rival here, and I think Andres Mesa will be giving everything he can tonight. We saw in the final practice session that he did set the fastest time out of all of our drivers who did put in the time, and I think for the Spaniard he will be looking to just simply try and put Monza behind him. Forget about what happened at Italy as you're back on the, rather not, I was going to say the sunny shores then, but the rainy shores of the United Kingdom. He will now look to go racing again here as he makes his way out into the old start finish straight before coming out into the extended right hander here at turn 9, the long extended right hander where you're trying to manage as much speed as possible, and the Distinct GG driver is doing everything he can in order to set the best possible lap time right now. Now looking away from the Spaniard here to a pair of Germans, the Jochen Schweizer powered by BMW drivers of Max Maliar and Ralf Piringer. If you're wondering why their liveries look a little bit different, their liveries have been updated for this race onwards, and I can tell you the way to distinguish between the two of them, other than the fact we have their names on the screen. You'll see that Maliar has silver wing mirrors, and meanwhile his teammate Piringer, who's making his way around circuit right now as well, we're just trying to find Piringer, Ralf Piringer. We'll see that for Ralf Piringer, he has got reddish silver wing mirrors there. So as a result, you'll be able to tell the difference between the two of them based on their wing mirror colours there, and they've got some slightly updated liveries, but both drivers in the BMWs feeling very happy with how their team performed last time out, and indeed I think they had a very happy evening down in the paddock afterwards, both very pleased with how each driver did, and they'll be looking to do well again once more today as we jump on board here with Piringer to take us around for a lap. So as he makes his way there out of the final corner, going across the timeline to build up speed to go for his first flying lap. Into turn 1 here, one of our 2 medium speed sweepers after a long straight, and as he comes through into 2, you can see the car just gradually rolling out to the right side, but he wants to bring it to the left under braking here, so that way he widens the apex of turn 3, going through the second gear corner, and now coming up into turn 4 here, coming all the way down to first gear here, and waiting to point the car to the exit in these wet conditions so as not to overspeed on exit and oversteer, and now coming through 5, flat out through 5, and now onto the the Wellington straight. The first two named straights, he charges all the way out towards turn 6 here. The late apex of turn 6, you're going to see he's going to brake as late as possible and try and go as late as possible for the apex here. He waits for it, he waits for it, he waits for it, and then gets onto the apex curve then, and now coming over towards turn 7, staying to the inside into turn 7 here. It's a deceptive corner. You want to go wide, but you want to actually stay tight, and as he makes his way out the corner, stamps on the throttle, uses the weight of the BMW M6 to stabilise the car out the corner, and now coming through turn 8 and up into turn number 9 here. It's the fastest corner on the circuit, arguably, as he comes up into turn 9, looking for that 50-metre board, dabbing on the brake here, trailing it in, and as soon as he feels the car bites the apex, getting back on that throttle, and now building up the speed to turns 10 through to 14, as we see the of course Ferrari there, Talera off the circuit, coming through 10, flat out through 10, and then starting to trail brake his way through 11, building up a bit more throttle through 12, and then starting the long trail brake sequence, as we have got a Porsche there spun on the entry into turn number 13, as he makes his way out of 13 here in these tricky conditions. Piringa unfazed as he makes his way now down towards the right-hander of turn number 15. Down the hanger straight he comes, all the way into turn 15. Of course, named hanger straight and Wellington straight in commemoration that this circuit is built on the site of two runways, effectively, or an airfield, and as he makes his way out of 15 down into 16 now, a heavy braking zone awaits him here, coming all the way down to second gear. A clip in that apex, very aggressive line into the apex, then uncommon line. We normally see a much straighter entry rather than an angled entry, but as he comes out of 17, a little bit of wheel spin there in the wet, and as he comes out of the corner and heads across the timing line, Piringa here crosses that timing line. Does he improve? It looks as though he does. It's a 2:05.496, a good lap there from Piringa as he continues around right now, and we jump back to the exterior cameras, but Piringa looking quite smart and sharp as he goes around, and Andres Mesa right now taking the provisional pole time after the first set of qualifying laps, a 2:04.5 flat, and Kieran Prendergast in P2. Meanwhile, he's making his way around the BP Racing driver with a lap that is half a second down on Andres Mesa. So the only two drivers to get into those 2:04s right now, Andres Mesa, and by a small margin, Prendergast there, Kieran Prendergast, as he continues his way around the circuit. Now, as we look from our top two in qualifying, a little bit further down the order, we can see Marcus Fox here, the Austrian driver from Fox Sim Racing, down in P8, currently 2 seconds off of our fastest time in qualifying, and he's only the best part of 500ths off of Adrian Leusinger here. And these wet conditions will favour some drives compared to others. We know some of the drivers, such as Leusinger, for example, our P7 driver, we know based on Season 1, when it was wet races, he was able to do very well. Indeed, as we do see Harry Phillips and Gaz Williams there changing places in P3 and P4. Phillips now to P3, Williams down to P4, and more lap times are coming in, and we've got Ant Brown right now, Anthony Brown in full, the Code Brown racing driver here from the United Kingdom, who's in P6 right now with a very good previous lap there, which was a 2:05.682, 1.2 seconds off of our fastest lap in qualifying so far. And the McLaren 720S driver putting in the effort, and it is definitely showing as he makes his way around through turns 14 and into, through turns 13 and into 14, I should say, as he now comes on to the hanger straight. Now, as we check in with our drivers' pre-race thoughts, another driver who we did have the chance to catch up with, it was the civilian of Andre Jacquelin, and you can see here running a new livery today, the Food Point Racing driver running in his Food Point Racing colours. A rather nice livery. It's a combination of black and white, of course, and what the civilian was saying to me in the build-up to tonight is that coming to Silverstone is a blast, and the reason for that is that rain suits him on this circuit, and he hopes to step up his performance and finish better than P10. So he wants to be inside the top 10 because Silverstone is one of the best British and he loves to race on it, and he wishes a good race to all of his fellow competitors. A very friendly guy, and much love to the civilian Jacqueline down in the paddock. A lot of drivers get along with him very well from what I'm hearing, and indeed a lovely chap to talk to, and definitely if you do get the opportunity to catch up with him, he's a lovely guy as he makes his way through turn 4 and up into 5 right now. Currently P15, and I think he might start to just see that qualifying's not working out as he would plan, as he's in the second half of qualifying right now. We've got just under 7 minutes to go, but I'm sure Jacqueline is saving something up for a little bit later on in the qualifying session as he comes through turn 6 and up into the extended right-hander at turn 7 right now. Taking a sweep line, then you can see the rear end of the car brutally kicking out, and he had to get it back under control before he started to oversteer off the circuit there. Indeed, he would have lost the rear of the car. Andres Mesa behind him right now, still on a very fast lap. But I say that, and it's the case. Well, look at this. Kieran Prendergast, who's run off the circuit there, and I'm not sure where that is. Well, he's parked up, and I wonder whether that was a return to garage which is going to cost things. That didn't look to be in the pit lane, but Kieran Prendergast there, it was the case that he did get up into pole position temporarily, and then Andres Mesa has responded immediately with a 204.224. So the Spaniard and the American exchange in lap times as if it's text messages and a very rapid rate, and as they make their way around the circuit right now, particularly Andres Mesa, he will know he's got the pressure on him now in order to try and get into those 203s, because if he can do so, I think he might be able to put this one to bed. Speaking of putting things to bed here, we can see that Harry Phillips is putting the questions of whether he's going to be on the front two rows to bed. He's currently 9/10 of a second off of Andres Mesa, and he is the fastest Bentley driver only by half a tenth right now. Williams keeping him honest, and indeed Phillips here, I think the Wild Things racing driver will have it in the back of his mind that he's got Gaz Williams, who is very fast, it would seem, in these conditions, and Williams rising to another challenge, at least in qualifying. Now, going from some of our top drivers in the order to a little bit further down, what I can tell you right now is that Gareth Mills is in P25, and he has set our slowest time of this qualifying session so far, a 209.255, but it's not to say that he couldn't do well in the race or later in qualifying. He's got 5 minutes to go. He's got the Half-Life machine there coming up behind him of what is, if we remember correctly, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is Daniel Tran just coming through as Mills moves off the racing line and just gradually ekes his way up towards turn at 15, giving the drivers behind him plenty of clearance to carry on their laps. The South African driver returning after a brief spell away. Of course, he wasn't able to take part at Monza, but the GM Racing Machine, or Millsy as he's known by his friends, taking it to the circuit once again today, and in that very fetching livery. I'll tell you one thing, if you could score points for liveries right now, I think the GM Racing Machine would probably be up there in the top 3 as a minimum, or at least in my opinion. Do let me know your thoughts on some of the liveries you've seen tonight, of course, as well as the drivers you're supporting in the chat, as we see Mills making his way around to go on to another lap right now. And what you're saying in the build-up to tonight is that he was excited to be coming back, and he's hoping for a top 20, as Silverstone is not his favourite circuit, and indeed with the weather as well, the British weather so unpredictable, I think for Mills today it's going to be about damage limitation, but also it's going to be about a little bit of an exploration experience in terms of what can he achieve as he makes his way through. Now, meanwhile, we can look up further the order, and we see in P14 right now, provisional P14, 2.4.5 attempts of what is our pole lap right now. We've got Tom Gander, the Briton here from tganderservices.com, making his way through turn 6, goes a little bit wide on exit there, and I think that's going to be a track limits violation, which will compromise the lap as he loses the rear end there, and it's those tricky conditions and that very, very sensitive rear end of the Ferrari as he reverses off circuit sensibly there, and Gander, well, we're just about to say what his faults were in the build-up to the race. I think his faults right now will be and things have gone a little bit wrong, I dare say. But what Gander was saying to us in the build-up to tonight is we will need to see what the weather does. Indeed, multiple drivers felt that way with regards to weather. As we see, he returns to the circuit right now, staying out of the way of everyone. But it is the case, this weather, very tricky indeed as he makes his way through. As he makes his way back to the pit lane, of course, we look a little bit further back up the order, and we can see that right now our top 5 separated by a second. And look who's managed to creep into that top 5. Paco Lara once again, the prototype racing driver from Spain, doing a fantastic job here to get himself right into the mixture. And you have to imagine for the 266 car, how high can he go? And well, last time it was a top 5 finish. Could we see Lara make it to the podium today? I wouldn't rule it out right now. He is almost half a second off of Harry Phillips, but you have to imagine if one of those top 3 make a mistake, alternatively have a disaster at the start of the race, we could be seeing Lara right up there. Alternatively, we could see the likes of Williams, Piringer, Brown, Ulrich, Leusinger and Kienna there. And look at really the gaps from P5 downwards, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see from P5 to P12, P12 being owned by this man right here, which is the TUG Racing Esport driver, the Austrian of Walter Lux in the McLaren 720S. You would have to imagine all those guys separated by only a second. That is 8 drivers covered within a second window at Silverstone in the wet. This shows you how tight the field is. It does seem as though our top 3 are in a slight world of their own in terms of lap time, but as soon as one of them drops the ball, it'll be the case that all the drivers behind them would love to seize the opportunity and claim a scalp. And we can see here as Lux makes his way through a little bit further back, I believe we do have Sylvain Pastoris. No, Sylvain Pastoris, in fact, coming through what is their turn number 18 right now, as we see Lara run off the circuit there, as Pastoris, I think the Swiss driver, just slightly on the racing line, and Lara having to take a bit of evasive action as they all make their way through into turn number 1. Only 1.5 minutes left in this qualifying session, and everybody will now be coming on to their last flying lap. And will we see any surprises? Well, one surprise I can tell you is that Harry Phillips has already parked up the car. He will not be taking part in qualifying anymore, so I think he's giving it the best he can. And Ralph Piringer as well, and to be fair, Piringer in P6 right now, Maliar in P21. We can see the Jochen Schweizer driver, the lead one of the two, of course, in the 405 car, putting in another strong qualifying performance, and I think he's giving it everything. Marcus Fox as well in the pits, P13. Not a good qualifying session for the Fox Sim Racing driver, but as we look back out on circuit right now, we can see that it is still a provisional pole for Andres Mesa, a 204.224, and he will have one more lap after this. He's just making his way down towards turn 16. He still just have 50 seconds to get across that timeline to go onto one more lap here, and Andres Mesa will be safe and sound with regards to going around for one more tour of the circuit as he comes through the final corner to go on to his final flying lap. He doesn't improve that time around. Instead, he was building up for one more here. As we see in the rear view picture there, you have got Jacqueline, but meanwhile Prendergast, who is perhaps one of the only drivers here who could assert Mesa to pole position right now. You can imagine the Ferrari driver would love to take a shot at this as he makes his way through 13 and up into turn 14, and as he comes sweeping through onto the hangar straight here, we'll wait and see what the time is. As we see behind, that's Adrian Loisinger in the rear view picture. They're getting a bit of a distant tow on this straight, which will benefit him and probably give him a couple of attempts if he's able to get a bit closer, but here will be worth perhaps a tenth with a very distant tow, but of course he's got to be careful of the loss of downforce into turn 15, which is a downforce reliant corner. But as qualifying comes to its end now, we will wait and see if anybody does make any sudden improvements here. As we can see, we've now got the overtime countdown of 2.5 minutes, as Anthony Brown has improved to P4 there, and it's a case that Ant Brown jumping all the way up and dethroning Lara from the second row for the time being. Prendergast comes across the line here. He does not improve by the looks of things, and it is the case that it's not improving for Prendergast as he comes on through. What about Andres Mesa? Well, Mesa into the pits, and we've got a lot of drivers making their way into the pit lane right now, and it does look as though all of our drivers here have decided it's not going to work out in the end, as Prendergast has not been able to improve. And who else have we got? We've got Paco Lara right now, who has come through, but qualifying has ended for the Spaniard, I believe. Then we've got Gaz Williams here making his way around, and he's not improved as Gaz Williams. Has anybody else improved for the time being? And it does not look as though we're seeing too many more improvements, as we have seen Paul Scott and Eduardo Tripiana take to the circuit and put in lap times. Paul Scott, of course, being the last of our lap times right now on what is a 209.096. He comes through to complete his qualifying session shortly, and I think he does not improve. So as a result, it looks as though here we've almost got the field wrapped up. Paco Lara just making his way around the circuit right now, and then we have got Fabio Chiena here who's parked up as well. I do think it's pole position to the Spaniard of Andres Mesa, who's currently parked up in the pit lane here. I think he's done enough, and meanwhile he'll be joined on that front row by Kieran Prendergast again, and then it will be Harry Phillips who starts on the second row, and alongside him with a season best qualifying session, Ant Brown there from Co-Brown Racing, the British driver, will be very pleased with that. And our third row will consist of Gaz Williams there and Paco Lara, and I think Lara has parked the car somewhere off circuit, or is just gradually creeping around right now. It does look as though Lara is just coming to the end, and indeed they have finished their qualifying session, and it is, as the time burns down right now, we get ready to go racing. Fabio Chiena will start off our fourth row there with Ralph Piringer alongside him. Ulrich and Loisinger completing our top 10 as we now get ready to go racing. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, whilst we are now building up to the race, it's Andres Mesa who has taken pole position here, and I think the Spaniard will be very happy to see that his championship rival is a row back. As we say hello to Lurb in the Twitch chat, we hope you're doing well, Lurb, and that you're having, a good day so far. As we see all of our drivers now getting their cars set up. And, well, it'll be the case that for the Spaniard here, as we just look on board the cockpit, he will want to get his head down and he will want to break away as quickly as he possibly can here. And particularly Prendergast, who we know, Prendergast, the Ferrari driver, would love an opportunity in that Ferrari. As we look on board his car right now, he would love an opportunity to get ahead of Andres Mesa and take another win. He would love to be able to get a win by simply gaining the lead and breaking away with it, but will he be able to, or will we see our P3 man here of Harry Phillips, who we're sitting on board with right now? Will he be able to find himself up into that top two, or even take the lead come the end of the opening couple of laps? But meanwhile, as we look a little bit further down the order, we can see Ant Brown there in the McLaren, centering your picture right now, the purple, black, code brown McLaren P4, and he will be thinking right now to himself that with a season best qualifying result in these tricky conditions, what could he do at the start? Could we potentially see Brown, Williams, alternatively Lara there, the Williams and Lara occupying our third row? Could we see the pair of them causing an upset? And that would be something special if we were able to see, after 5 races, 4 different winners. It's been 4 races, 3 winners so far. Those 3 winners have been Andres Mesa, Kieran Prendergast, and 2 wins for Harry Phillips. Will we see a new winner tonight? And as we look a little bit further down the order right now, we look to our P24 driver here of Néstor Mejía, the Salvadoran from Rasket Racing. And as we sit on board with him briefly, as I said earlier, it was the case that last time out, it was a character building experience. And when I spoke to him earlier, what he had the things to say to me was that he had a disastrous performance at Monza and realised that perhaps he should have just gotten a little bit more practice before signing up for the league. But still, he's gone in at the deep end, to be fair, and he's not going to be afraid of it. So he's been doing a bit more practice and a few more multiplayer races within the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform in order to get himself up to speed. Remember, he is previously a GT Sport driver. We've seen him in a number of NXTGEN Racing GT Sport Series, and making that transition over to Assetto Corsa Competizione can be very difficult, but he's not afraid of giving it his best shot. And given it's going to be a rainy race, well, at least that's what he thought going into this one, he feels it'll be more difficult, and he's yet to drive a GT3 at Silverstone. So it's going to be an all-new experience for him in the build-up to this race and going racing, and he's hoping for a potential top 20. Well, he's only 4 places off of the top 20. He's qualified relatively well for it. Will he be able to achieve it? That is the big question for the Salvadoran as we look away from his car right now. And as we look a little bit further up, we can see Daniel Tran here, the Half-Life Racing driver in P20, of course, the target man for Mejía. As we can see, Tran just waiting as the Swiss to go racing, as all our drivers are just sat here patiently right now in the build-up to what is expected to be a very, very difficult race for our drivers. Meanwhile, Maliar here in the end qualifying in P16, and could he potentially take another swipe at a top 10 here today? We saw how the strategy worked out for the German last time out at Monza. A brilliant bit of strategy and clear air all the way through meant that he was able to jump up the order and benefit from the losses of others, as well as just his own raw pace in the end coming through. Can he do it again tonight, or will it be the case that Korogowski starting in P15 will have something to say about that? The McLaren driver, of course, in the 420 car, looking rather fetching and qualifying in P15. Right in that midfield, he'll be looking for a top 10 if he can, or as close as possible. But with only 1 minute to go now before our drivers begin to pull away, we can see Loisinger here just making his way into the top 10, did the Swiss tonight, in the Dream Pace race car there, and he will be hoping to stay in that top 10. And we can see alongside there Martin Ulrich, and Ulrich in the M Technology Mobile, a very consistent driver and a strong driver, and he will be looking to utilise the stability of the Mercedes AMG in these wet conditions to give him an edge. But now, as the countdown is coming down here, only half a minute to go, we can see, as we look a little bit further up, Fabio Chiena here, the Swiss as well from Tamir Racing, he will be starting that P7 position, and he would love an opportunity to go for a top 5. But we look back to the front right now, and indeed, as we pan the cameras around here, we will shortly have Andres Mesa take us away for the double file formation lap. It will be the warm-up lap, and it will be on his call with the double file rolling start that we go racing for 75 minutes at the Silverstone circuit, and we wait for him to take us away when that countdown goes to 0. And as we check in with you guys and girls in the chat, of course, we can see here that no C-Door, no T1 crash. Well, it does look to be that we're not experiencing that, Mr. Kuroneko. Of course, we do miss seeing you out on the circuit here, Kuroneko, but we've also got Mejía and Nesta, at least a better quality this time in the Twitch chat. Indeed, a good qualifying from yourself, sir. And we are now starting to pull off and take the manual double file rolling start underway here. And of course, it will be quite a long rolling start. This one, it doesn't bite into any of our race time. However, the race time only begins when we cross that line and we go for the green. It'll be Andres Mesa who takes us to the green as they all make their way around right now. And you can see, in fact, here, as they come down, I've got my start points a little bit mixed up on the circuit. I must apologise, ladies and gentlemen. We started off from the old start-finish line, not the new one, as we see Andres Mesa here taking us through what is the sequence of corners, running up to what we were previously calling turns 13 and 14. And we're going to have to adjust our numbers in our head very shortly as he comes all the way down now towards what is the hangar straight. But as we look a little bit further back, we can see here Tom Gander just following along for the time being here. The Ferrari driver coming through. He's got Velkowski just Velkoski's behind him right now, but I believe Velkoski in the end Velkoski did qualify behind him, so we will be waiting for Velkoski to move back into his position. As you can see, everybody running from side to side here on the hangar straight right now and getting ready to go as they all gradually oscillate their way down towards what is the very tricky Stoke corner. Of course, turn number 15 as all of our drivers continue to head down there now. And as they do so, we can see right at the back of the pack, we've got Paul Scott and Eduardo Tripiana just ahead of him, of course, in the Porsche there, the Spanish Porsche, the Suzuki race, what is the SRB IJA racing team as they come on down. And we look back up towards the front right now as we can see Andres Mesa taking our drivers up towards turns 17 and 18 here. And we can see the rain moderate but not too heavy as he brings us through the final couple of corners here. And as we make our way around, we now are effectively at the start of where the GP start line would be, but we are of course going to go racing from the old start-finish straight. So as our drivers come around, we will be adjusting those corner numbers for you so as to not mix things up. As we do see Kieran Prendergast there just making his way ahead a little bit, but then it's Andres Mesa who comes back ahead of him in this warm-up right now. As all of our drivers are coming together here in the rundown of the new start-finish straight, but it'll be the one that we don't start on today. As we can see here, Phillips making his way through right now, and in his mind he'll be wondering whether to go early or whether to think about playing the long game with this one. And we know with Phillips, tries to keep the racing as consistent as possible, but he has been prone to some slight strategic difficulties with regards to getting the tyre pressures right in previous races come at the end of the pit stop. Will he experience that again today? As we check in with our stewards here, our stewards are ready to go in that stewarding box, and we can see here Harry Phillips just carrying his way down right now. And meanwhile, a bit further, Andre Jacqueline here in P11. He's starting in a good position. Will he be able to capitalise as we now get ready? We're starting to make our way down to the start-finish line here as all of our drivers coming down, and we are going to renumber the corners for you as we make our way down towards what is effectively turn number 16 right now. And as they all come down towards the corner here, we can see starting that double file rolling start, and it will be for Andres Mesa to take us away as we head out onto the old start finish straight of Silverstone. And it's green and go, go, go for round number 5 of the series as we see Andres Mesa gets a reasonable start, but Kieran Prendergast immediately goes on the offensive here, round the outside into turn 1, and in doing so takes the lead very rapidly as we see Harry Phillips follow suit, but behind there Paco Lara making it 3 wide versus Piringer and also Gaz Williams as they come through here into turns 2, 3 and 4. A bit of contact there between Williams and Lara. Lara knocked to the escape road as we see all of our drivers coming through and everybody making it through safely on lap number 1 in the first few corners here as we see Fabio Chiena in P10 dropping a little bit down the order here, and I think a number of drivers have been caught out by the starting procedure as they all make their way down onto the hangar straight, and we can see the pack of cars all in very rapid formation coming all the way down in towards what is turn number 7 into Stoke corner they come, and we can see there Paco Lara on the offensive. They're trying to get back at Williams early on as Loisinger goes to move on Ulrich as well as they come through, and we can see here it's the case that Lara looking for that move on the Bentley there, and Williams trying to get back early here after a difficult start and goes to move. Oh goodness me, and Gaz Williams is turns there, and Loisinger caught up in that instant, and you can see everybody having to take and split the seas there to avoid the wayward Bentley, and I think that we have got a BMW that's got it a bit wrong, and I think that is the BMW of what is Piringer there, who has had a disaster dropping all the way down the field. We see a lot of cars going wide there as they go onto the new start finish straight, and as they come on through you can see some drivers already gaining massively. Gareth Mills up into P22 as we see a little bit further down the order Victor Tolera into into P16, gaining a lot as Victor Tolera at the start of this race. Indeed, just a couple of incidents have led to drivers gaining rapidly, as we do see a car parked up there on the exit of one of the corners as they make their way in down through the second half of the circuit right now, heading around onto the Wellington Straight very shortly. But right now up front it is Kieran Prendergast leading for the time being as he comes into turn number 17 right now, and we can see behind Andres Mesa trying to hug the back of him, but Harry Phillips also right there with him. The top three and our three winners in the series so far all together. But look at Ant Brown, he's not too far back right now, he's a second off our top three. So after one lap of racing, it's Kieran Prendergast leading ahead of Andres Mesa, followed by Harry Phillips. Then it's Ant Brown in P4, followed by Ralph Piringer in P5, Paco Lara in P6. Then we have got Ulrich in P7, followed by FHD in P8. Then Fabio Kenner in P9, followed by Andrew Jacqueline in P10 as he makes his way through. Marcus Fox in P11. Then we've got Sylvain Pastoris here in P12 as he comes on through as our time screens continue to be updated. Daniel Korogowski in P13 right now, gaining 2 places at the start. Walter Lux behind, falling a degree down the order, as we see Daniel Tran then completing our top 15 under pressure right now from Victor Tolera as he makes his way through the opening corners. Hold on a second, was that a Ferrari going the complete wrong way there? That did look as though that was a Ferrari or some sort of car that wasn't pointing in the right direction. I'm not sure what that was, folks. We saw that briefly on the camera, but whilst they're making their way through right now, we can see it's the case that Gaz Williams, after that spin, had, oh goodness me, we've got a Ferrari off there. That's a Ferrari going for a spin in the rear of the camera shot, and I think that's Sylvain Pastoris who has been knocked. As we can see, there's also Gareth Mills in the mix there. We're not sure exactly what's happened, but I can see that both drivers have been involved in an incident together, and they're now both back racing once again as they make their way on down the straight. But meanwhile, we can see up in front, well, here it is. We can see Mesa versus Phillips. Phillips on the inside here as they go into the second half of the circuit, and as they come on through, as the camera pans around, Andres Mesa drops the position, and Ant Brown stays right with these guys. And we've also got Piringer and Lara there. The BMW we saw going off earlier was not Piringer, it was his teammate Maliar, we should clarify. And as they come up into the run now out the hairpin here towards the Wellington Straight, you would imagine that Andres Mesa is probably thinking to himself right now, he wasn't able to make the brakes, he's got to go to some sort of plan B and instead tuck in behind Phillips and Prendergast whilst they all go racing now down towards the final couple of corners. Running up right now to turn at number 16 once again. You can see in the rear of your picture there, Piringer starting to look for a move on the Brown, the Co-Brown machine, Ant Brown there, and not able to find it. In fact, goes a bit deep as a result of that little snatch move. And now the Oculus Visor driver is going to be under pressure from Paco Lara behind as they make their way through here. But Paco Lara into the pits already, and I'm not sure what's happened here with Paco Lara, but that is a very early pit stop. Is there damage to the car? But he's in, and remember, there is a pit window. Is he going for an early stop here to get it out the way? If so, that would be an incredibly early pit stop here, but perhaps he's seen something that we haven't in terms of a window opening up as our lead drivers come through turns 2, 3, 4 and 5 once again here, and as they come roaring through, you can see Ant Brown under increasing pressure from Piringer behind as Piringer is closing up and then some as we jump on board here with the P5 driver, the BMW driver here at Piringer, as he goes on the pursuit down the hangar straight. Now, as the German tries to build up the momentum versus the McLaren here, he'll have the advantage on the straight, of course, but the McLaren very strong through the corners due to its natural downforce. And as they come up into turn number 6 here, they rotate their way through. You can see the difference in lines where Brown is more comfortable in using a wide line there. Piringer having to close to the apex much earlier on. And further up front, I'm being told that it's the fact that Phillips is trying to get the move done on Prendergast there. We can see them off in the distance, but no juice so far for Phillips as we see Prendergast here holding on to leave the time being. As we look back from Prendergast's car, you can see how Phillips, in trying to go for a move there up into turn 7, he's lost the momentum as they now make their way into the second half of the circuit here. And as they come through, heading up towards the hairpin style sequence, we can see that Andres Mesa just tucking in behind for the time being, but the Spaniard very wary and looking to try and get a return move on Phillips. I think the Aston Martin driver's now got things up to temperature, and he would love an opportunity to come back and try to take on both Phillips and Prendergast here as they begin to now make their way down onto the Wellington Straight. And as they come through the left-hander to make their way into the long straight here, heading up towards turn number 16 once again, it is the case that the three of them stay line astern for the time being. No changes between the three as they head up towards the corner right now. We will wait and see as they come on through. Meanwhile, a bit further back, I can tell you that Martin Ulrich, the M Technology driver, has gained massively up to P6 in these opening laps. But behind, as we saw there, everybody's starting to look for potential moves. We've got Andrew Jacklin here, who's trying to find a way through. He's already got past Marcus Fox. He's up to P9. Can he find a way past Kiena and Everstedt ahead of him? He goes a bit deep there, does the Food Point Racing driver, as there's a tiny bit of contact there by the looks of things from Fox, who flashes his lights. I think he's trying to say that he's sorry for the little tap there, but I do not think that Jacklin's going to be too perturbed by that as they make their way through 18 and on to another lap. But look at this. We've got Everstedt defending versus Kiena here in the battle for P7 as they make their way through turn 1, and we can see the rear of that McLaren just sliding through the apex there as they come on through, and that's going to give Kiena the ability to come onto the outside inside line into turns 2 and 3. He's going to try and go for it here as they come in. They're going to tighten up, and Everstedt notices that Kiena's there. He backs out of it as they come through 4 and up into 5, but this is costing him massively as Kiena now inches ever closer. Come on, cameraman, spin the camera round, and as we get the camera to point on them as they go on to where's the hanger straight, you can see as they come up towards what is turn number 7 right now is the fact that Kiena is starting to make a breakaway, and René Effenstedt is under huge pressure as behind him Jacklin goes a little bit deep into 7, and as they come through the corner we can see that Fox is now starting to fight back here. The Porsche driver having the better rotation through the corner as we'd expect from the Porsche, but not quite the acceleration out the corner to make it count as the McLaren driver Effenstedt is really struggling with that rear end. He's had a bit of snap oversteer on the exit there at turn 8, and through 9 and 10 they come onto the new start finish straight here, of course not the one that we're using, and you can see it's the fact that right now Jacklin is under pressure from Fox and he needs to get past Effenstedt. Effenstedt is holding him up and he cannot find a way through. As hold on a second, I think we've had something happen further up the field here. We've got Harry Phillips dropping down the order like a stone. He's down to P6. Now I'm wondering if there's been some contact, as we're hearing that was a drive-through for a driver very early on, as we will be taking a look very shortly, and we can see Intensive 17. What track is this? This is Silverstone, my dear friend in the Twitch chat, and we can also see there Kuroneko, Gaza Williams. I feel your pain, unfortunately for Gaza, having the spin, and I think the contact early on dropping him all the way down the order right now. As we can see Phillips, well, we will have to wait and see whether the stewards know a little bit something compared to us with regards to what has happened to Phillips, but Phillips has had a nightmare in terms of dropping out of the hunt of the top 3 so far, as it has released Piringer up as they come across that timeline to go on to their 5th tour of the circuit. Now we are starting to, well, we have had a drive-through penalty for car 58, and we'll figure out who that is very shortly for you folks, but we've got some penalties coming in already, so we will get that confirmation as to why some drivers have suddenly disappeared down the order. Well, we have, well, Paco Lara number 266 first. That would be one of the cars to understand. Well, we have not seen anything come through for Paco Lara, so I think Lara may have just made a pit stop, whether it's something that's going wrong with the car or whether it's a very early pit stop. Paco Lara has cleared their mandatory pit stop. It should be pointed out right now as Phillips tries to come back past Ulrich for the time being, but meanwhile up front I can tell you that Kieran Prendergast right now under huge pressure here in the run down towards what is their turn number 8, as he comes through turn 8 and into 9. Andreas Mason now, with Phillips falling behind, is looking for a way back at this, but he cannot find a way through for the time being, can the Spaniard. He's got the run though out of turn 10 and heading up towards 11 here, and you can see Prendergast very aware of it. He knows he's got to go defensive as they come into 12 here, and there's only really one line through the corner. As you see, Prendergast defends the inside. Andreas Mason will look for a cutback, but the corner sweeps to left-hander here for turn number 12. And as they come up into 13 and 14, it is the case that right now Prendergast doing everything he can to hold on to the position, but for how long? And remember, this is only going to benefit the guys behind as they make their way through 14. And I believe it is the case that Harry Phillips right now is looking for the move. He's going for the cutback through 14 onto the hanger straight of 15, 16 shortly. And as he comes through 15 here, Phillips looking for the momentum, but he hasn't got it versus Ulrich here, and instead has to tuck in behind. As you can see, a little bit of understeer there on the exit of 15, causing him to go wide and just trying to get the car rotated through the corner as Phillips tries to go on the offensive here versus Ulrich for P5. Now, meanwhile, as these guys are top 6 make their way through what is turn at number 17 to come towards the end of another lap, we can see Fabio Chiena here, having got past Fox, Jacklin and Effenstedt, is now in a world of his own in P7, and he is gradually catching up towards the leaders, it should be pointed out. As meanwhile, further back, we've got, well, it is the case that René Effenstedt right now down in P10. He has been passed by both Jacklin and Fox. We can see Fox at the front of the picture, and there's Korogowski. Remember, Korogowski started P15, and he's now in P11, battling with Effenstedt. as they make their way down towards turn 1 once again here. Both drivers making their way through the corner right now. Treacherous here as they come on through, and neither driver can gain the upper hand. Both, of course, in the McLaren 720. They're in equal machinery in terms of the base machine, but their setups may be the difference here, or the confidence of the drivers as they come through turns 2, 3, 4 and 5. And in the rear of your picture there, you can see Gazza Williams trying to make the move on Daniel Tran into turn 2, but instead he backs out here and waits for an opportunity as Tran goes a bit wide through 4, into 5 and then 6 they come, and Williams gains another position. Williams right now making a recovery drive from the back of the field almost, and he's up into P12, and he is flying. He's lapping right now a second slower than our leaders, but you have to imagine that he will have lost some time making the passes on each and every lap. As meanwhile we can see here Korogoski and Evenstedt going toe to toe through turn 7. Evenstedt on the outside, Korogoski on the inside, and it's the case that through Stowe corner, and out of it they come down towards the heavy braking zone here of turn 8, and Evenstedt holds on for now, but Korogoski is inching closer and closer with each and every lap. Oh goodness me, the rear end there snapping on Evenstedt, and we've seen that a number of times so far in this race, and that's only after 12 minutes of racing. If Evenstedt's got to deal with that lap on lap right now, that must be a very uncomfortable 720S to drive, because that rear end is sliding considerably compared to some of the other McLarens we've seen around on circuit right now. There just seems to be something with the setup at the rear of that car which is not comfortable for the driver as they come through what is turns number 13 and now into 14 they go. The hairpin corner before making the long round through 15 and on to the Wellington straight. Evenstedt pulling a bit of a gap out here, feeling a bit more comfortable in these lower speed corners, and it has worked out for him. He's opened up that gap to about 3.5 tenths as they now make their way down towards turn number 16 once again. But meanwhile up front, I can tell you that our race leaders right now are literally nose to tail. They're breaking away from the rest of the field, but right now it is Prendergast still leading on lap number 7 as they come through onto this 7th lap versus Andres Mesa. But Mesa right there, right on the rear and gunning for the position, as meanwhile I think Harry Phillips has just made the move through turn 1 versus Ulrich here. Indeed he has, and as he makes his way down towards turn 2, it is the case that right now Harry Phillips gaining the position here, and you have to imagine that for the Briton right now, he will want to come back onto that podium as quickly as possible here. He will not want Prendergast and Mesa to run away with it. They're 8 seconds up the road right now, and in terms of lap times, Harry Phillips that last lap was 3 tenths slower than the pair of them, but I do imagine it's because of him battling with Ulrich here that he hasn't been able to unleash that true pace, and we should now start to see it come from the Bentley driver as he makes his way up into turn number 7. He's got Christian Ablasser ahead of him. Ablasser having pitted, and I believe all the way down in P25 will be required to move out the way soon. The blue flags will be waving as he makes his way down into turn number 8. Now further down the order here we can see that on his recovery drive right now, the next driver he has come up behind is Evenstedt as Gazza Williams makes his way through turn 7, and we see Evenstedt has been passed off camera by Korogoski here and is now the rear of the 2 McLaren drivers. As Korogoski has snuck into the top 10 and is now trying to soldier away. And how long will it be, of course, before he has Williams breathing down his neck? Well, Williams right now breathing down the neck of Evenstedt as they make their way through the sequence of corners there, heading up towards turn number 11 right now. We look back from Evenstedt's car here, the Austrian driver, as he's got the Bentley there of Williams closing up to the back of him, and you can see there through the apex of turn 11, just not able to get it as tight to the apex, and Williams are literally siphoning time out left, right and centre into the heavy braking zone. They go here for turn number 13, and Williams looks to the inside here. The Evenstedt will defend into the inside of 14, but Williams is going to go all the way round here. He's going to feel confident. He's got the run out the corner, but as they make their way through, they're side by side coming into 15 here. Can Williams get it done, or will Evenstedt be able to hold on? Williams goes a bit wide, and Evenstedt holds it for the time being. It was very bold from Williams to try it, but the McLaren is able to get the edge there as they make their way down towards turn 16. But you can imagine Williams is not going to give this one up. As a look behind, that's Daniel Tran in the rear of your picture, as we can see that Evenstedt goes deep here. This is the battle for P11, and it could be a tide turner for Williams in terms of how much time he loses here, as we see Evenstedt loses the position through 17, and now it's Daniel Tran who's the next driver who's going to be having Evenstedt on his hit list right now as they make their way through 18 and complete their 7th lap. But meanwhile up front we see, as the camera pans round here, our top 2 still nose to tail here, and for how long will it be as they make their way into the Wellington straight? I can tell you that right now Piringer behind has just set a 205.9 compared to these guys on 206.1s, so Piringer is closing, and Prendergast having to go defensive now into turn 7 here. He is definitely worried about the long game here. He does not want Andres Mesa pulling away from him. He doesn't want Mesa getting the advantage as they come down to the braking zone for 8, and you can see Andres Mesa's running him to the the inside line. They're trying to make Prendergast make a mistake as they make their way out tonight. A flash of lights there from Andres Mesa. I think there was a little bit of a tap on the rear end of Prendergast's car, but neither driver picking up any significant damage or being knocked away with there. But that is how close Andres Mesa is running to the Ferrari driver right now as they come through turn number 11 here and make their way around, and we can see the rest of the field coming through. But as the Aston Martin driver continues to hang close to the back of Prendergast here, you have to imagine how long will it be before he tries to consider another approach here. We are only 17 minutes into the race. We've got a yellow flag out somewhere. I'm not sure where that's out for, but we have had a yellow flag moment somewhere out of the circuit. It's just been cleared, so I think the driver's had a brief off in the wet. But right now, as we can see, our top two here separated on an oscillating 2 to 4 tenths, and behind, Piringer and Ant Brown are closing. They have taken a second out the guys ahead on this lap alone, with the two of them fighting, and you can imagine that with Harry Phillips in P5 as well, and Fabio Keno's just got up to P6, and Ulrich has dropped down the order. I think Ulrich has had an off somewhere because his last lap was a 2.8.3, so Ulrich dropping to P7, Kiena up into P6, and this is literally consistency showing its merit right now, because Fabio Kiena is now into P6. He's well up there into the top 10, and I think he'll be very happy with how things have played out so far, but we will wait to see whether he can go a bit further later on or whether some other drivers might come up fast behind him, as Prendergast still holds on to that lead going on to lap number 9. Now further down the order, meanwhile, we can see here Gareth Mills after that instant in a P20 chasing after Sylvain Pastoris right now. Pastoris only 6 tenths of a second up the road, trying to hunt him down. As a little bit further up the order, I can tell you that one driver who's gone from P24 up to P15, of course, we're a number of instants ahead of him as he makes his way through. In fact, he's in P14 right now. Verstappen going into the pits, and I think that is to get his scheduled stop in and also to try and make some changes to the car. Verstappen not having a good race so far. We can see that Nestor Magia here from Rasket Racing has gained 11 positions effectively and is just keeping his head down and getting on with it. He does have Walter Lux behind him, and Lux quite a fast driver, but out of position right now. You can imagine that some of these positions may switch soon, but still, it does look as though the Salvadorian putting in a good performance so far, and we will keep our eyes on him later on in the race. As you do see there, Lux getting a bit closer, and you can see Lux immediately pulling over to the left-hand side there. I think he's a bit concerned about tyre temperatures, because for Lux to yoink the car effectively all the way over to the left-hand side on the run down the hanger straight would indicate those tyre temperatures are coming up quite high on those wets, as all three drivers now make their way at the foreground of the camera. That's Trippiani in the Porsche, of course. All three drivers now make their way down towards turns 8 and 9. Now as they come through here, of course, Eduardo Trippiani having a good start, starting from practically the back of the field and up into P13. The Spaniard right now doing everything he can just to keep himself in contention, and we can see here that he has got the pressure now of Magia joining him on the rear end here as they make their way through turn number 11, but he's not too phased by it right now. He's been here before, Trippiani, of course, being one of our midfield battlers in Season 1, as we see Magia there looking for a move on the inside into 12 and 13, but I think running a bit too high on the apex curve there, and that's actually going to cost him some momentum, as we see a 5-second penalty for Daniel Tran in P12, and Tran is only the best part of 3.5 seconds up the road from these guys, so that will severely affect his race, given the fact he'll have to serve that when he comes into the pits. But meanwhile, no change between these guys, but you can see Lux again pulling off the racing line. And I do think that for Walter Lux right now, there is an issue with tyre temperatures on that McLaren, because to be coming off that line, we've still got the rain coming down. There's been no change in the forecast of the rain for the next half an hour. It is the case that we have got a dry line forming, but it's one of those situations where I think for Lux, he needs to get those tyre temperatures down as much as possible, and that's what he's struggling with right now. As we see Prendergast still under a pressure here from what is Andres Mesa, and Mesa the closest he's ever been, and look at this, Mesa just literally latching onto the back here and trying to find every which way round, but it's the case that Prendergast putting up a defensive wall here, and it's the immovable object versus the unstoppable force, and can the Spaniard force his way through here into turn 8? He's going to try the outside, and he's going to hold to the inside here into 9. It's very nip and tuck. There's a bit of contact, and Andres Mesa is knocked sideways there, and that contact is a disaster for the Spaniard. Just the tiniest bit of contact as Piringer, and it's also there's Phillips coming through, and now it's the case that Andres Mesa finds himself on the back foot as Phillips goes a little bit wide there out to turn 10. I think that was to avoid clipping Andres Mesa's return to the race circuit there, but that was very unfortunate between the two of them, and I do think it was a tiny tap in the end between the two, and I'm not sure how the stewards are going to treat that one. I suspect it may be considered to be a racing incident or a warning to other drivers, but we'll wait and see. But Andres Mesa has now got it all to do as Prendergast continues continues to hold on to the lead, and at this point it's now Piringer in P2 who is now well within sight of Prendergast here and just focusing, I think, on keeping it together, and Piringer will be absolutely smiling from ear to ear right now. We've still got 54 minutes of racing to go. It's not over yet, but for Piringer right now, he'll be thinking to himself, okay lads, if you guys can just keep knocking each other about here, then I'm on course to potentially take a win, or at least a very strong podium finish here as he makes his way up towards what is now turn number 10 as he comes through the right hand apex here. But as we check in with you guys and girls in the chat, and we've got some more penalties coming in very shortly. Nothing else from you guys right now, but feel free to keep throwing in your comments with regards to the racing. As we can see a little bit further down the order right now, Tom Gander, well, we have had the retirement of Tom Gander, actually. Gander out of this race. We're not sure as to why, but the number 59 car has had to retire, unfortunately. But meanwhile, we've got Ant Brown here, who is now in the McLaren in P3, but the Code Brown machine is under pressure from what is Harry Phillips behind the Team Wild Things racing driver, getting very close as they make their way out of turn number 6 here in the run-up towards turn 7. Down the hanger straight they go, and as they do so here, you have to imagine that Phillips would love to seize this position. He wants to get away from Andres Mesa, who's only 1.4 seconds behind right now. He does not want his championship rival to be on his 6, because effectively Phillips has got more to lose than Andres Mesa right now in terms of the situation. Andres Mesa just needs to finish ahead of him to extend the lead. Phillips needs to finish ahead of Mesa and then some to really close that lead up. It's a 3-point deficit, but every point is critical as they make their way through turns number 9, well, sorry, turns 17 and 18 there. My apologies, folks, getting my numbers mixed up again, going back to the old numbering we were using earlier. That's through turns 9 and 10 as they come into turn number 11. Now, there we go. And as they come on through here, you have to imagine that right now it's the case that Brown will be doing everything he can to hold Phillips behind him. He will want to hold on to that P3 position as long as he possibly can, because this will be his first proper opportunity at a podium in this series as they come through turn number 14. Will he be able to hold on? That's the question. As we can see the difference in lines here, Phillips deciding to take a wider entry into 13, in order to 14, I should say, to give himself the momentum versus Brown, who takes that tighter defensive line. But I think it's for Brown. He feels he's got the confidence to outrun Phillips on the straights with the natural order of that McLaren 720S versus the Bentley behind him as they now make their way into 17. And look who has closed up here very rapidly indeed. It's the number 91 car, of course, the distinct GG driver of Andres Mesa here, who knows he needs to get back in this hunt. He wants to get back ahead of Phillips. He does not want to be seen in the rear of that Bentley. He wants to see it behind him instead as they make their way onto lap number 12. And Fabio Chiena here, it should be pointed out, is closing up to these guys. But Andres Mesa has just set the fastest lap of the race, ladies and gentlemen, a 2:05.109. To give you an idea, on that last lap alone, that was 7 tenths faster than anybody else out on the circuit. And the second fastest driver out on the circuit was the guy behind him, Fabio Chiena, with a 2:05.853. And these guys right now, both Mesa and also Chiena, are lapping faster than our leaders as they all make their way down onto the hanger straight here, and you can see that Brown is under pressure. Phillips is going to look to the inside here, and this could be an opportunity for Mason to get into the mix come to turn 8. As we can see, Phillips goes through on the inside, he parks the car there, and Brown is now caught between the two championship contenders as they come down towards turn 8 here, and Andres Mesa will be looking to the inside immediately. In fact, he will want to get this whilst Brown is out of position, and he does so. A small clip on the apex curve, to be fair, that could damage a little bit of the front aero, but it does look as though Andres Mesa has capitalised and turned it into a 2-for-1 special as they make their way through 9 and 10 and up in towards turn number 11 here, coming into the second half of the circuit right now. And you can imagine that Mesa is not going to let Phillips get away at all. The gap between the two of them is 1 second, and Brown is already starting to fall a little bit back as we can see Fabio Chiena closing up on these guys as well. But meanwhile, checking in with regards to the penalties, we have had a couple more penalties come in. So we have had a drive-through penalty for car 58, and car 58, it should be pointed out, was Adrian Loisinger, and that was for contact with him and car number 90. And car number 90, if you're wondering who that is Gaz Williams. That was the driver who we saw spun earlier on, so that was contact between himself and Loisinger. And also we have a 5-second penalty for car number 48, and that, no, car number 48, and that's Daniel Tran. and the reason for that is a push to pass on car number 11 earlier, and car number 11 was Rainer Erfenstedt, who's now down in P24 after taking his pit stop. The only other one, of course, we've got a warning to car number 8 for driving standards, and car number 8 is one Nesta Magia, who we can see here making his way along right now after an incident between himself and car number 46. And car number 46, for those wondering, is the car of Robert Velkovsky, who I believe has retired from this race. So we lost 2 drivers already, still 24 drivers remaining, and we've still got 49 minutes of racing action ahead of us. And right now we can see that our race leader, as he's coming up behind a back marker here of Kieran Prendergast, is doing everything he can to try and run away. But meanwhile, one guy who would love to run away, but he's being reeled in, is Ralph Piringer, of course, on a 206.6 last time around. But to give you an idea, Harry Phillips and Andres Mesa were 6 to 8 tenths faster by comparison, and that is the speed at which our championship contenders are going. And to be fair, Piringer, P3 in the championship, he will be hoping just to finish on the podium or just outside of the podium to get some solid points on the board here. But you can imagine that Piringer right now would not like to see both of them come through together. He'd like to keep at least one of them behind him to try and maintain that chance of the podium if they were able to break away, of course. But again, we've still got plenty of racing to go. The forecast may change, but we do know within the next 30 minutes we're expecting the same level of rainfall, and it is the case that we're not going to be seeing too much of a change in track conditions as our drivers make their way up towards turn number 13, and through they go here. And Fabio Chiena, who is in P5 right now, doing a good job here, as we've well, it looks as though we've lost Ant Brown. He's fallen quite a way down the order here, and I think Ant Brown's had an off somewhere, and it's the case that the McLaren driver having a bit of a difficult moment, but he's dropped down to P7. He's behind Ulrich, and Ulrich was nowhere near him when the battling was kicking off between the guys. But right now it is the case that it has gone very wrong for Ant Brown, as meanwhile for Piringer, as we ride on board here with the BMW driver, looking back, of course, from Ralph's machine. He has got what is Phillips and Mesa all over the back, and we can see the Wild Things Racing driver closing up tremendously here. And as they come through, it does look as though Piringer's into the pits. Piringer's decided that he doesn't want to be in this fight. He wants to get his pit stop out of the way, and I think that is a very smart call that could come back to benefit him massively later on, because what he does now, he's backed Phillips up into Mesa with the way they've closed up to Piringer so rapidly here. What he will be hoping is that these two will fight one another and take time out of one another, and potentially, of course, we don't want it to happen, ladies and gentlemen, but potentially make contact and one of them lose out or both of them lose out. He'll be thinking about that. He doesn't want to be in a fight. He wants to pit, get himself out in some clear air, and just go for the final result. Whereas these two right now, I think they're both pushing one another along, and they both want a shot at Kieran Prendergast right now. And that last lap, I can tell you, Andres Mesa on that last lap has just raised the bar for fastest lap. We have got a driver now in the 204s, a 204.743 from Andres Mesa. And to give you an idea, most likely he's on at least a high degree of fuel right now. The pole lap was a 204 low. So right now we are only about 5 to 7 tenths off of the qualifying pole time in race trim, and Andres Mesa is absolutely sending that Aston Martin at every single corner. He wants this win so badly, and you can see it in the attitude of the car. Every corner is literally a fast apex. He is throwing that Aston Martin. It's wonderful to see, of course, in the masterful hands of the Distinct GG driver. He does not want to see Phillips take another result ahead of him right now. He does not want to see that championship reel in. He wants to expand it as they make their way through turns 13 and 14. But of course, Mesa, a smart driver as well, and he will be thinking about, if he can't pass Phillips early, then how can he work with Phillips to gain on Prendergast. Prendergast, of course, is further up the road right now. He is 6 seconds. He's opened the gap up a little bit as they're all starting to come up towards traffic now. And we will wait and see how this develops, as we see Phillips right now just holding onto that position and Andres Mesa tucking him behind. Now, further down the order, of course, we've got Marcus Fox right now in P7, and as he makes his way on through, we can see it is the case that right now I think we've had one of our drivers pit quite recently, and that would explain why we have seen a change up. It was Piringer who pitted, and that is why we've seen Fox come into that P7 position. But behind, you can see now it is the case that Andrew Jacqueline in P8, but for how long is the question, because we can see the surgeon Gazza Williams here making his way up towards turn number 16, and he is getting rather close to the back of the Aston Martin Racing driver. Now, of course, I think Jacqueline may decide to let Williams through, respecting the fact that Williams is in a bit of a different race right now, but we'll wait and see. Of course, Jacqueline is potentially on course for one of his season best, if not his season best right now, but will he put up a major fight? That's the question. To be honest with you, if I was in Jacqueline's shoes, I would probably let Williams through, because I've seen how fast Williams was in the qualifying session, and I would look to use Williams to pull me closer to the likes of Fox or Brown, who I would suspect would be more along my pace. But we'll wait and see what the Slovenian's going to do here as they make their way through turns 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 for what is the 15th time of asking. And further back right now, Piringer, well, here is the driver who pitted from P2 only moments ago, and look where he's brought himself out. He's got himself a nice amount of clear air. The closest car to him ahead is the best part of 8 seconds, and here is the pass from Gaza Williams versus Jacqueline here. Williams on the inside, Jacqueline on the outside. I think Jacqueline's backed off on the exit of 6 here, down the hanger straight, and into 7 they go, and indeed Williams is flying right now. He's not quite got the pace of what is a 204 or a 205, but he's keeping it in the low 206s right now, and compared to the majority of our leaders, he is gaining 2 to 4 tenths a lap outside of Prendergast, Phillips and Andres Mesa, as right now Williams is literally giving it everything to come back through the order, and as he does so, you can imagine here it's going to be an absolute flyer from him as they come down towards turn number 11 once again. Now, as they make their way through the right-hander here of what is turn number 11 in towards 12, Williams now continuing to build up that run on Fox, as meanwhile further up the road, I can tell you that it's the case that Phillips versus Mesa continuing to stay nose to tail here as they make their way through the right-hander of what is turn number 17 and heading up towards 18. And as they do so, it is the situation right now where I think Phillips is starting to feel that growing pressure, and Prendergast has just set another personal best at 205.2. Prendergast is responding to these guys. He knows they are closing, and he's trying to match them lap on lap for pace, if not open up more of a gap. So Prendergast is definitely not getting complacent, as we do see there. It looks to be Sylvain Pastoris who will be responding to blue flags very shortly, most likely, as they make their way through turns 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. No real way to move out the way for Pastoris right now, as he does go onto the outside there. He does move out the way and then backs off completely. That will cost him some time, but he is a long way back from Adrian Loisinger, who is the next guy ahead of him, of course, as he's now a lap down is Pastoris, as they make their way on to what is the hanger straight once again. Now, meanwhile, whilst we're looking for our leaders, we look a bit further down the order, and one driver who we haven't seen so far, but he's in P14 right now, is Chris McKenna, the distinct GG driver here in the Bentley, the British driver, making his way across that timeline, and we can see Walter Lux ahead of him, swerving there off race tonight, and tyre temperatures on the McLaren are very, very prickly, I must say. We've seen this multiple times from Lux, where I think he is trying to get those temperatures calmed down as much as possible here, and the P13 driver right now, the Austrian, you would have to imagine that McKenna will see that and he will try to mount some pressure. And that last lap, McKenna was 1.4 seconds faster than Lux here, and I do think it's the case that Lux is nursing a tyre pressure problem, as we see it. McKenna meanwhile closing up rapidly, as our timing screens are a little bit glitched there, saying that Lux is behind McKenna, but I can definitely tell you based on our cameras that it's Lux that is ahead of McKenna as they make their way down towards turn number 7, and that glitch has just been corrected, and it looks though Magia there, Nestor Magia, is only 2 seconds behind these guys. Could he get into the fight a little bit later on? That will be the big question for him as they make their way down towards turn number 8. But further down, after having an early spin on the open lap, we can see Maliar here, Max Maliar in P18 right now, and Gareth Mills behind in P19. These drivers just pressing on for the time being. They do have some drivers who have pitted, trying to come through the order, and one driver who's already got past these guys is Paco Lara here. And Lara, of course, with that disastrous start right now, just trying to soldier on and get his way back into the order. And to be fair, when we say disastrous, losing a number of positions, but not being knocked or sent for a spin. But Lara literally pitted come the end of lap 1, and right now Lara all the way down in P17. I think that might have been a pit stop to get rid of an issue on the car as well, because right now this has not worked out for the Spaniard, who does seem to have lost a lot of ground and a huge amount of time. But meanwhile, coming away from Lara, I can tell you that it is the case that Andres Mesa has made the move on Phillips. We didn't see it on camera, but it is the situation right now where the Aston Martin driver has gained P2 and he's making the breakaway from Phillips here as they head on down towards what is turn number 7 once again. They come into Copse Corner here, and as they do, it was not Copse Corner, Stowe Corner, and as they make their way through, we can see it's the fact that Andres Mesa just starting to make the breakaway, and he will want another shot at attacking Kieran Prendergast Prendergast. Now, of course, we know how fast Mesa is at this circuit. He's the only driver in race trim so far to set a time in the 204s. Everybody else, their best has been a 205 or higher up, but Mesa is going to be flying here, and we do have to wonder how much he's going to take out the car in order to achieve it as he makes his way through to another lap very shortly. And as he does so, of course, it'll be the case for him. He will be doing everything within his powers. He comes through turn 12 right now to go hunt down our leader. Behind, though, we can see here Fabio Kinner is yet to pit, of course, but he has been kind up to Andres Mesa and also Phillips. And to be fair for the Austrian, he's not been far with the pace. His last lap was one of his best. He set a 205.7 on his previous lap. His best lap was only a couple of laps earlier. That was a 205.4. Keep an eye on the Swiss here, the Temir Racing driver. I think he could be in with an outside shot of a podium here, should something happen to the guys ahead, or he has a fast pit stop compared to them, because this is very impressive pace from Kiena right now. And indeed, the number 47 driver reveling in these conditions, and you can see it. Aston Martin, he just looks very composed, and it's as though nothing seems to affect him. He's always been well within that top 10, or had the pace to be in the top 10, but today he's pushing higher for a potential top 5 as a minimum. And behind him, Martin Ulrich here, the M Technology driver, keeping his head down in that P5. Of course, we've got pit stops to play in here, including Ulrich's own pit stop, but you can imagine the number 41 driver right now will be looking at a potential shot of a definite top 10. Could he potentially sneak into the top 5? But meanwhile, with him making his way around right now, I can tell you that the one driver who is setting a reasonable pace right now, having pitted to get out the way of what was Phillips and Mason not be brought into a freeway battle for P2, it's Piringer, who on his last lap, his first proper flying lap, a 206.495, compared to the drivers ahead of him who are oscillating to high 205s and low 206s. Piringer keeping that consistent pace right now. Not quite the pace we would see if he were to try and jump Mason and Phillips, but he's definitely on the potential pace with that early pit stop and the clear air he's afforded himself to have a shot again into the top 5. As he makes his way into turn 2 here. And Daniel Tran behind him right now. He's got nobody really ahead of him, and he's got no real pressure behind him. He's got an 8.5 second gap to Piringer up the road, and Trippiana, who's 7 seconds back, has yet to pit, much like Tran. So we'll wait and see how it goes for the Swiss a bit later on, as the Half-Life racing driver here makes his way through turns 3, 4, 5 and into 6 very shortly. But looking even further down the order, we can see Tolera here trying to chase down Paco Lara. But remember, Lara has passed Tolera quite recently, and on top of that has already pitted. So Tolera here not really racing against Paco Lara, because he will have to pit at some point in the race. But what we can tell you is that we've had the retirement of Korogoski. Daniel Korogoski has retired the number 420 car, and we've got quite a few retirements stacking up in this race. We are now down to what I think is 23 drivers, as Maliar here has got Gareth Mills inching closer, and it is the BMW driver versus the McLaren at the rear of your camera shot here. This is going to build up for the battle of P18 as we do reach the halfway point in terms of the race time, and we can see that Maliar right now holding on to what is that P18, but for how long, as we do have Mills there inching ever closer in the 720S. But of course on the straights, as we see Maliar weaving across there, and I think trying to get onto a little bit of standing water before coming onto the racing line as he comes on through. Our tyre temperature starting to become a factor on those wet compounds for Maliar. That will be the question, as we still have heavy rain. Well, when I say heavy rain, moderate rain in fact, forecast. It's the same amount of rain as we previously had. We've still got that forecast for the next 30 minutes. I think we are going to have a race in the wet, and we're not going to see the rain intensify or lighten. I think we're going to have this moderate rain, and it does seem to be that the British weather has hit us quite hard today. As meanwhile, our race leader, he's on to lap number 19 right now. He's making his way down the Wellington Straight here, and Prendergast, well, that last lap was a 204.995. Andres Mesa's last lap, however, was a 204.557, improving the fastest lap of the race. And Andres here really pushing hard. He knows that he can put Prendergast under pressure in terms of lap time, but the gap between them is so big right now. That 6 seconds, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're racing at this level between the two of them, and where they're trying to take swipes at one another's lap times, lap after lap, for Andres Mesa, he has to push so hard on every lap to try and close up. And behind, Harry Phillips is starting to be dropped by the Spaniard right now. The Britain out the rear of your camera shot before we can see what is Kiena there running a little bit wide out of the corner. as they come into turn at number 11 through 12 very shortly. Phillips right now is lapping approximately 5 tenths slower than our race leader, and almost a second slower on that last lap compared to Andres Mesa. But I can imagine that when the lap times average out, you're looking at Phillips running somewhere in the region of 3 to 6 tenths slower than Andres Mesa, when Mesa has an absolute push lap as they head around and down on to what is the Wellington Straight here. And as they come on down, we have got some pit stops starting to occur here. We can see we have got Walter Lux just coming out of the pits right now, and meanwhile we've got Nestor Magia here parked in the pit, still taking his pit stop for the time being, as Lux now leaves the pits here. The Austrian driver, that is, I believe, unless, well, no, that was Rainer Effenstedt earlier on. I was going to say the two cars are looking very similar to McLaren drivers, but it is the case that Lux right now back out in P19 after his scheduled stop, and Adrian Leusinger is continuing to try and get himself back into the contention for the top 20 here. The Swiss driver in P20 right now, having made his pit stop earlier on, plus also the penalty he's had in the race for the contact earlier on with Gaz Williams, and it is the case that Leusinger right now just trying to salvage some points out of this one. But whilst he makes his way round, we go from Leusinger to Williams, and if you're wondering where Gaz Williams is, well, here he is, the P8 driver right now. He's yet to pit, of course, so he will have the pit stop and still plenty more to do, but the recovery drive is still occurring right now as he makes his way across the timeline. His last lap there, a 2:06.3, and he is chipping time out on Marcus Fox right now. The gap between the two of them, only 2.3 seconds as they come down towards turn 2. You can see Fox there in the background, and as the camera spins round shortly, we see Fox at the foreground going through turn 3, and then Williams following shortly after him. 34 minutes remain. How high can Williams go? Can he recover into the top 5? I think that would be a phenomenal achievement if he could, but still getting back into the top 10 here would be an achievement in and of itself as he makes his way through. And meanwhile, whilst this is going, you can see Andrew Jacklin in the rear of your camera shot here as he comes on through as well. And the Food Point Racing driver here, the Slovenian, trying to find a way to get back into the hunt for an outside chance for a top 5, or at least definitely finishing in the top 10. It was his target to finish higher than P10, and right now he's looking at a P10 as a minimum. Will he be able to hit his goal? That'll be the question. As Piringer, what I can tell you is Piringer is building up the pace right now. It is the fact that last lap, a 2:06.0, Piringer is starting to inch closer to the high 2:05s, and I think for the German, he will be a threat for some of the guys ahead of him. So remember, he has pitted, whereas the likes of Jacklin, Williams, and also Fox and Brown have yet to pit. Kiena as well. Phillips and Andres Mesa, I think, will clear him unless they have a long stop. But speaking of clearing people, Andres Mesa has just raised the bar on that fastest lap, a 2:04.413. Another temp it's been raised by here. You can see Andres Mesa is literally pushing, and that gap between himself and Prendergast has just come down to 4.7 seconds. The Spaniard is flying right now. Now, I do think in terms of when the pit stop's going to occur here, if it's going to happen, it's most likely for the pair of them, they're going to try and go as long as possible here. A 2:04.5 that time around Prendergast, a 2:05.5, a second ripped out there as they complete lap number 20 and go on to lap number 21. And Fabio Chiena is into the pits. Now, this is critical for Piringer. Will Piringer have made it ahead of Chiena? Chiena really picked up the pace towards the end of that stint. We will wait to see it. Where is Piringer right now, you ask? Well, Piringer is making his way through a turn number 17 as we speak. We can see him on the camera right now, and as Chiena pulls into his pit box, I'm looking outside of my commentary window right now. They're just servicing the car. They've just got it raised up, and as they make their way around here, particularly Piringer, we can see he's heading across that timeline here, and I do think he's going to come out ahead of Chiena here. I think this is going to work out for Piringer. I think he's timed that stop right, and he does. He takes P9 as Chiena is still parked up here. They're still working on the car, so Piringer up into P9, and this strategy has worked out for the German. The Jochen Schweizer are powered by BMW machine. The lead one of the two cars out on circuit is gaining considerably right now as he makes his way through turns 3, 4 and 5 and heads around through to 6 as Chiena now makes his way out the pit, but this is going to cost him massively. I believe he comes out behind what is there Daniel Tran. You can see Chiena at the rear of your camera shot as they make their way through the opening sequence of corners. As they do here, nothing more coming in for the stewarding right now, and as the drivers continue to make their way around, we can see it is the case that the race has spaced out just a little bit in terms of the overall battles, and it's now coming more down towards the potential strategic battles and the overtakes in the pits. But I do say that, and at the same time we can see that Gaz Williams here continuing to take time out of Marcus Fox, although be fair on that last lap, Williams setting a 2:06.7 at Fox, a 2:06.8, so the two of them matching lap times. I'm wondering if one of them's made a mistake. particularly Williams, or whether it's the case that it's just starting to come to an end, the charge here in preparation for the pit stop. We've got 31 minutes of racing to go here, and Williams is continuing to try and build up as much momentum as possible. He is taking that time out of Fox, it should be said, but I think Fox is just a little bit faster compared to what he's been taking out of time previously, and it is working in Fox's favour right now. As we see in the rear camera shot, you've got Jacqueline there, but remember, Piringer is the one we need to concern about, well, at least for these drivers they'll be concerned about, because he has already made his pit stop and he is closing up to this group of cars as they make their way through here, through what is turn number, I believe, turn number 17, and head up towards turn 18. It is the case that Williams falling back from Fox a little bit. In fact, I would say perhaps Williams has taken too much out of the car on this charge right now, because he does not seem to be the measure as they come across that timing line. And Fox, why say that? And then on that last lap, to be fair, Williams to 206.0, Fox to 207.0. So I can wash my mouth out with soap with regards to that one, because Fox is still flying as they make their way through. Meanwhile, as Prendergast here makes his way through what is turn number 8, our race leader still, Andres Mesa, continues to close that gap up. Last time around, however, he only gained by 2 tenths. Prendergast is trying to respond lap on lap right now, but he has got the traffic to deal with. You can see Andres Mesa in the rear of your camera shot there, chasing after him furiously right now. And will we expect the leader or the second place man to go for an early stop to try and go for the undercut and gain an advantage? Now, if you were in Prendergast's shoes at this point, with the amount of traffic you're coming up towards, and well, he's already cleared one car, he's got plenty more to go here. That's what he's got to think about here, is when does he pit? Does he navigate traffic? And in return, does Andres Mesa think, okay, I'm starting to close up to traffic, it's costing Prendergast a lot of time here, and I'm gaining because of it. Do I pit now to avoid the traffic and come back out in clear air? That'll be the full process. We see Walter Lux then moving off the racing line, respecting the blue flags, and as they come on down towards turn number 16 here, you can see no change at the moment, as I believe we have got issues for 2 drivers here. We have got Effenstein in the pits. We've also got Nestor Magia stuck in the pits. He's coming out of the pits once again. I think something went wrong in his first pit stop, but he has been in the pits twice now, and well, that is not a good day at the office. I think still plenty of learning to do for the Rasket Racing drivers, as we see Trippiana emerging from the pits in P17, having made his compulsory stop, as he now comes through turns 2 and 3. So we are getting a bit of a shake-up further down the order right now as they come on through, but as they do, it is the situation where our drivers continue to press on with 28 minutes of racing still in the tank. But you have to imagine that in these conditions, anything can happen. As we see Paul Scott here in the Optimum Motorsport car down in P18. He does have Prendergast trying to come through here. As we see Magia coming out behind these guys. I think it may have just been a single pit stop for Magia, but it just has not worked out. As we see there, Prendergast giving Scott the flash of the lights very early on. He knows he's under huge pressure here from what is Andres Mesa, who is closing up. And behind, that's Adrian Loisinger, who is trying to close up to the back, as we do see Prendergast there being held up by a little bit of traffic. He goes to the inside here, and I think Scott now just moving out the way, feeling comfortable to do so. But as he does so here, Scott, of course, will now have Loisinger over the back of him, but Loisinger has already pitted, so Scott, who is yet to pit, they are in a bit of a different race as they come through turn 10 and up towards turn 11. You can see Loisinger going wide there, and that's Andres Mesa has to try and clear that traffic, and this is going to be quite difficult for Mesa because he's caught the traffic at a bit of an awkward place out in the circuit, it must be said, in terms of the run through 12 and up into 13 and 14, but he could gain the slipstream down the Wellington straight, and that could benefit him. As we see, it's the case that Loisinger immediately moving away out of the way on the blue flags there. He knows that he's got the P2 man coming through, and he does not want to upset a fellow Aston Martin driver. As Mesa now makes his way out of 14 up into 15, he comes here, and the Spaniard is continuing that charge. The gap between him and Prendergast now only 2.7 seconds, as the Andres Mesa making his way up towards turn number 16. 27 minutes to go. This one's going to come down to the very end, as I can tell you that with all this happening right now, Harry Phillips has pitted. He's come back out in P9, and look who's ahead of him, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the power of the undercut. Ralph Piringer is up into P8 here. He's got Phillips chasing after him, and Phillips, of course, is on his first, well, on one of his opening out laps. We will wait to see what Phillips' pace is right now, but Piringer has gained through all of this, and really he is the lead car in the top 10 who has pitted right now. So Piringer is the reference point here, and that's what Prendergast and Andres Mason will be worried about. They will see on their time screens that Phillips has come out behind Piringer, and they will be worried that Piringer could jump the pair of them. Now, is that going to be the case? I think it might be the situation where Mason might be vulnerable to it, whereas Prendergast, I think, should be safe, assuming that the pit times work out. But Piringer right now could be on for a jackpot of a result here, given the fact that he has made the strategy work. He is now coming up behind some traffic. He has got Jacqueline 2.5 seconds up the road, but Jacqueline, of course, in P7, and we suspect that Jacqueline will be wanting to hold on to his position, which would be approximately P9 or P10 come the end of the pit window. We will wait and see as all of our drivers come through once again here. But meanwhile, looking back up towards our leaders, we can see that gap is still just over 2.5 seconds. Mesa pushing as much as he possibly can as behind it. I think that was a move by Adrian Loisinger on the inside of Paul Scott into what was turn number 8. Indeed, Scott behind Adrian Loisinger right now, and Loisinger pulling away as they fly out of turn 10. Runs a bit wide there to Scott as they make their way out towards turn number 11 right now. Indeed, the McLaren driver there in a different race compared to Loisinger, based on the fact that Loisinger has already pitted. 25 minutes remaining, and we've still got plenty of pit stops to be made here. We're not over in terms of the strategic overtakes yet, or the potential battles out on circuit, as we do check in with you guys and girls in the chat. And it is the case that right now, as we check in, we can see there that we've got Magia Nesta pointing out in the Twitch chat that something went very, very wrong in his pit stop. Didn't want to change tyres, just refuel and somehow put on dry tyres. Well, for Magia right now, that is going to be a very painful experience to be having dry tyres in these wet conditions, and I think that will necessitate that second stop to switch back to wet, but still all part of the learning experience. As meanwhile, we can see a bit further up, we have got Ulrich in P3, and he is right now, I think, relishing the fact that he's in this nice position. Of course, he's yet to pit, and when he does take that pit stop, he's going to see himself drop down the order, but how far down the order? As meanwhile, we haven't seen him in some time, but we now come back to him. He's past Marcus Fox to P5. Williams right now, he's yet to pit, much like Fox and Jacqueline. You can see Fox in the rear, your camera shot there, but it is the case that Williams is continuing to build up this momentum, and it is absolutely sensational. Williams making the recovery drive of the season almost as he comes through turns 16 and 17. And as he comes through the 17th corner there and in towards 18 to complete another lap, to complete his 24th lap of the circuit. Behind, we can see that Piringer has closed up to the back of Jacqueline. He's 1.1 seconds back, and I think he will be hoping that Jacqueline is going to pit soon. You can see Piringer flashing his lights there already. I think he's trying to get an early message through to Jacqueline at a distance. Look, I'm coming through. Just be wary of the fact I'm coming. But to be fair, it is the case that Jacqueline on a 207.2 there. Piringer just stripped 1.4 seconds out of him. I would imagine that Jacqueline may respond to this and simply, when they get to a straight, think about tucking in. And Harry Phillips behind right now. That last lap from Phillips, a 205.5 versus a 205.7 from Piringer. Phillips is not closing up that rapidly right now to Piringer, but of course it's early days, and remember, Piringer was the first two to pit right now, and you can imagine that perhaps it's a little bit of a wear off there come at the end of the stint as they make their way down the hangar straight, and you can see Phillips just waiting patiently as Piringer continues to flash his lights here to Jacqueline. I think Jacqueline might also be wondering, well, why are you flashing me? I'm not a lapped car, as they make their way through turn 7, but I think Piringer's just trying to get a message through to say, come on, don't make it difficult for me. We're in two different races. Do not let me cost you time, and do not cost me time. But we'll wait and see whether the negotiations work out, or whether it's going to be a failure of diplomacy between the Slovenian and the German as they make their way through turn number 10. Meanwhile, further down, we can see Fabio Chiesa in P10 right now, as we do have Daniel Tran into the pits. He's dropping down the order right now. The next rider to come through, that is Gareth Mills there in P14, who's yet to pit as well in the heavily wounded GM Racing machine. And I think he's just trying to soldier on to conclusion right now as he makes his way up into turn 2 here. And Daniel Tran, I believe, is coming out of the pits currently. He's going to drop down to P15. But of course, I'm not 100% sure about that. I think it's actually going to be Eduardo Tripiana here who takes the P15 off of him as he makes his way through. He does indeed, and you can see Tripiana just coming out ahead of Tran, and now Tran will need to find his way past the Spaniard, who is making a brilliant drive and started all the way down the field towards the very bottom of the field up into P16 and just making it work as it currently stands as he now comes on through. The gap between our leaders, meanwhile, I can tell you they're just a bit further up the road. They've lapped both of these guys. The gap between our leaders, 1.9 to 2.1 seconds. It's oscillating every so often. Both drivers are giving it everything they've got, but we will wait and see how that plays out very shortly. As meanwhile, we can see here is the fact that Tripiana just trying to gain the momentum away from Tran. Tran, of course, has been in the pits, so those tyre temperatures will need to be brought back up as they make their way into turn number 8 here. Mercedes versus Porsche, and Adrian Leusinger there only 1.3 seconds back. He'd like to get into this fight for what is P15 come the end of the race. But as they make their way through here, we can see that looking back up to our P8 driver here of Piringer, as the camera pans around, he's now right behind Jacqueline. And will Jacqueline just release this, or will Piringer have to find his way through? Well, as they make their way down towards turn 7 here, you can see it's the fact that Piringer's going on the inside, Jacqueline staying nice and on the wide, and they're pretty much sending the message to say that he was going to let it through. I think he was also partially looking at a potential cutback there, but then Jacqueline having to back out of it, and Piringer not losing any time whatsoever there. And now Phillips will be hoping that he can have the same privilege behind Jacqueline as they make their way through turns 8, 9 and up into 10. And you can see already Phillips looking for the move on the inside into 10 here, and Jacqueline backing off immediately 9. There is no way he's going to be getting through as they make their way down towards 11 here. Jacqueline playing it smart here, and I think realising that he's in a different race than these two. Why fight them and lose more time when you can potentially bring home a good result, as we see him make their way down towards what is turn number 13. Under braking they go here, and the free drives continue on their way. As meanwhile, our race leader, Kieran Prendergast, he's only got a 1.5 second gap right now to Andres Mesa. The two of them are pushing the lap times to the maximum as Martin Ulrich comes into the pits from P3 here. The M Technology driver into the pits for his scheduled pit stop here. We still do have Ant Brown running around on circuit in P4. The Code Brown driver here, who fell down the order to a degree earlier on in the race, but he's soldiering on, and you have to imagine that right now for Ulrich, he's taking the car as far as he possibly can before having to go for the pit stop. Meanwhile, Williams here in P5, well, he's going to carry round despite not pitting yet, and Fox is just behind him. But where's Piringer in all of this? Well, Piringer's coming through right now, as is Phillips here, so they will jump Ulrich. They are not going to have Ulrich come out near them, and meanwhile, you can see as they make their way through here, it is the fact that I think Ulrich is just leaving his pit box right now, so he's leaving his pit box, and then Jacqueline's going to come through, but Jacqueline has yet to pit. So the driver this will concern the most is Kiena, but I believe, yep, Kiena is going to come out behind Ulrich here. So Fabio Kiena has had a longer stop, and whilst it was working out initially for Kiena, he's now dropping down the order, and it's Ulrich now who is out ahead of him, and the Swiss driver will be aware of that, and can he potentially push hard come at the end of the race, as I think we may have just had another disconnection from the lobby based on that small amount of a latency spike there, but we will try and get that confirmed as soon as possible for you, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, looking a bit further back here, we've got Walter Lux, who's trying to chase after Victor Tolera. Lux, of course, in the black, yellow and red McLaren here, the TG Racing eSport driver. As behind, he's got Nestor Magia, who is a lap down, of course, after that disastrous pit stop, putting dry tyres onto the car and having to make a second stop to change on to wet tyres once again. As they make their way through here, we can see that it is quite spaced out towards the rear of the field right now. As meanwhile, looking a little bit further up the field, what I can see is not spaced out is the battle for P15. And well, if we look at the head of the battle for P15, you can see here looking back, we're right on board with Eduardo Tripiana. Behind him is Daniel Tran, and then behind Tran is Adrian Leusinger here. All three drivers have pitted, and they are running on similar pace. And as a result, well, Leusinger has been the fastest of the three, and you'd have to imagine that he would love the shot to take the pair of them on, but it does look as though Tran goes a bit wide there into turn 1. He's going to be vulnerable to Leusinger here as we look back to the exterior cameras, and we can see that Tran right now has got Leusinger all over the back of him as they come through 3 and up into 4. And as Leusinger follows him through here, we jump on board with the Aston Martin driver as he comes through turns 4 and 5 and 6, and as he comes out of 5 and into 6 right now, he's got the momentum here. Will he be able to find a way through, or is it a bridge too far? We will wait and see as they come roaring down towards turn number 7. Into Stoke Corner they come here, and there's no way through, but you could see under braking there, Tran going deep on the brakes and trying to close up to the back of Tripiano, who has not had the best of runs through 7. And as they come down to 8, Leusinger getting increasingly close here, the pressure mounting, Tran going half defensive into 8, and this is costing him a huge amount of time, and Leusinger here just playing the mind games, and if you can imagine, we'll be going for the move come the Hanger Straight next time around, if not the Wellington Straight on this lap. As we see that Tran getting the better run out of 10. And as they make their way down towards turn number 11 right now, these guys all seem to be rather evenly matched, all have their strengths and their weaknesses, but Tran does look rather unstable in the run through the corners as they make their way up towards 13 right now. We have still got 17 minutes of racing to go here, and Tran going a bit deep again through 13 and into 14. It forces him onto an inside line, and Loisinger going to capitalise on this. This will give him the run as they come up towards 15 here, and Loisinger all over the back of Tran now as they make their way around and down onto the Wellington straight here, and this is what we're waiting for. Loisinger will have been timing this, and he's starting to flash his lights out, I think, trying to distract Tran into that braking zone for 16, but there's no way through for the time being. But you can imagine as Tran goes deep there to 16, it will put him on a defensive posture into 17 as Loisinger looks to the deep line to go for the cut back out the corner, and it is the case. The Aston Martin driver right now just building up the pressure as they make their way around through turn number 18 and complete another lap. They complete their 27th lap. They go on to lap 28, and as they make their way through, expect a pass to be coming sometime soon, or at least an attempt at a pass, but will Tran respond? That is the big question as they make their way through. And meanwhile, checking in with the stewards, still no more updates with regards to stewarding or anything on those lines. So it's okay so far, as we can see here that Tran under that enormous pressure from Loisinger here, trying to hold on to that P16 as they make their way through turns 5 and into 6 here. And it is the case that Loisinger once again having it all to do as he's fallen back in the run through the medium speed apexes. But meanwhile, Ant Brown is into the pits here, and this will release a number of drives up. But where will Brown come out in all of this? Well, we've got Marcus Fox right now, who has got Piringer close behind him, and will 3.5 seconds behind. But look at this, Piringer has now got Phillips getting ever close, as I believe Brown is starting to leave his pit box soon. In the rear view picture, there's Andrew Jacklin, who's still yet to pit, but Piringer here in P5 trying to hold on versus Phillips, who's inching ever closer, and Brown is now coming out of the pit. And where is this led to emerge? He's emerged ahead of Fabio Chiena here, and the co-Brown driver comes out in P9 with Jacklin and Fox yet to pit alongside Gazza Williams. This could lead to a major battle for P6, P5 come the end of the race. But meanwhile, looking away from Ant Brown and looking up towards Ralph Piringer, you can see Piringer under huge pressure now from Harry Phillips as they make their way down towards turn 8. We ride on board with a Bentley driver here as they come through turn 8, and you can see that now in Phillips's eyes here, he will have been wanting to close up as much as possible. They've got a sizable gap to our race leaders right now, and that I think is on the minds of Phillips. He won't want to battle Piringer too hard here in case he's able to jump ahead of Andres Mesa or Prendergast come at the end of the race after they made their pit stop. But with only now what is 14 minutes remaining, you have to imagine that pit stop is coming soon, and when it does, they will want to pounce. As you can see, they make their way into turn 13, and it is Piringer who makes a little bit of mistake there under braking, as they know it will come through 14 and head around for the run onto the Wellington straight here. As we see it, Nestor Mejia moving out the way, and as they come all the way through, it is the case that Phillips not able to close up enough to consider a move this time around. As meanwhile, Prendergast here leading, and Andres Mesa, well, Andres Mesa has pitted. He has pitted, and we didn't quite see that on camera, but he has come out in P2, so Andres Mesa has cleared the chasing field right now. And with a short stop there and a gap now between himself and Kieran Prendergast of 38 seconds and closing, Andres Mesa is the one who went for the undercut, but he's got some traffic, and this could really hurt him if that traffic is unkind to him as they make their way through turns 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And you can see that Mesa right now will be pushing every lap. That last lap was a 2:05.0. We missed the pit stop there for Andres Mesa, but he is on a charge as he comes out of turn 5 and 6. He will want to close up. Now, will Prendergast react? No, Prendergast right now is continuing around. We will wait to see when he comes through the next time. He's coming towards the end of the lap right now as we see ahead of him. That's Max Maliar who's moving. Oh, goodness speed. He's caught Maliar a bad place here coming through 13, but Maliar stays over to the right hand side here trying to give him as much space as possible as they come through 14. But this is uncomfortable for Prendergast because he will need to react. Otherwise, we could see that race fall away. As meanwhile, Trippiani, Tran and Loisinger here in the battle for P15. Well, Loisinger's fallen off the back of Tran, and Trippiani here under pressure from Tran in the run into 13. And as they make their way through the sequence of hairpin style corners here, you can see that Trippiani just trying to hold on to that P15 position. And this, where he's got Gareth Mills and Maliar ahead of him. You'd expect to come out ahead of them. Chris McKenna into the pits as well from what was at the time P11. And well, neither of these three drivers gaining that much. Well, I say that. And then we do have Loisinger here looking for a potential move, but he's not able to snoop it out as they make their way into turn number 16. And these three, I think, are going to continue to be this close to one another to the very end, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. But of course, I think for Loisinger right now, he will want to get a move done sooner rather than later as they come on through the corners one more time. And as they make the way here onto what is the start finish straight through turn 18 they come, you can see Loisinger's got the momentum. He's going to try and go around the outside versus Tran into turn 1. This is going to be very risky here. They almost go door to door, and you can see Loisinger backing off immediately as they come through the corner, not going for the move this time, backing it off and waiting for another opportunity. Into two they come, but he's so close to back. He's too close to gain, and in fact I think he needs to back it off a little bit and gain through turns 3, 4 and 5 so he gets the slingshot onto the hanger straight coming out of 6, and that's what he's gone for. You can see he's backed it off slightly, and as he makes his way now through 6, he's closer than he has previously been. The gap now only 2/10 of a second. Here comes the move from Loisinger. He's got to go for it. He's close enough to do it this time as they make their way in the run down towards Stoke Corner at turn 7, and as they come into the heavy braking zone, Tran defends the inside, Loisinger on the outside here, and it is the case that Tran has gone a bit deep. Loisinger looks at the cutback, but on exit they're side by side coming down in towards turn number 8, and there's no way through on the inside for Loisinger. He's got to go all the way round here if he wants it, but Tran holds him off once again. Meanwhile, Kieran Prendergast here leading at the moment in a comfortable lead, and further down the order, Piringer in P5. Well, he has got Harry Phillips all over him now, and I do think that Phillips is now starting to get the message through to the BMW driver, get a move on or I'm going to take that place off you whether you like it. And Piringer's probably thinking, no, you are not. As they make their way into turn number 8 here, they've got a lot of traffic ahead of them. They've got FSJ just ahead, also Fox, and I believe that's Tolera, Pastoris, and Williams there. So this shows you how fast our top drivers are, our top 3 in the championship. This is how fast they are compared to the rest of the field right now in terms of outright pace. And with 10 minutes to go, and the majority of the drivers ahead of them to pit still, you can imagine that Piringer will be praying that the ones who are having to obey the blue flags move out the way as soon as possible, and then the other ones who have yet to pit immediately, as we see Tolera there, who I should point out is a lap up on Effenstedt, moves out the way there into 14, but this is getting very messy between the drivers as they come through. But Tolera moves out the way for both Piringer and Phillips at the same time. It's now Effenstedt ahead, and then it's Marcus Fox here, who's yet to pit. He's in P4, and the guys behind him right now in P5 and P6. This shows you the delta in terms of the pace, as Fox is just trying to soldier on right now, and Kieran Prendergast is into the pits. He's coming out the pits. Where's Andres Mesa and all this? Andres is just coming through onto the start finish straight. I think Kieran Prendergast is going to hold on to the lead here. He's just coming out right now, and he's made his way out there, banging the pit exit line, and we can see that Andres Mesa has come out 4 seconds behind Prendergast, and with 9 minutes to go, this is roughly 5 laps remaining, 4 to 5 laps remaining, is the case that Andres Mesa and Prendergast will now go to the finish, and Mesa will charge after Prendergast like a moth to a candle right now. He will go for that win as much as he possibly can as they make their way through turn 6 and onto the hanger straight. Meanwhile, further down, Gazza Williams is still out there. He's yet to pit, and he's in P3. He will have to pit. Marcus Fox has pitted, releasing Piringer and Harry Phillips up into P4 and P5 respectively as the camera pans round here. And as they make their way onto the hanger straight once again, it is the case that I think Phillips now will be targeting that P3. He's going to try and take it off of Piringer, but will Piringer be able to hold on as they make their way down towards Stowe Corner once again? And as they come on through for what is the 32nd time, it is the case that Phillips all over the back of Piringer. Piringer defends tightly to the inside here, and then it's the case that Phillips tries to go all the way round, but he's not able to find the place on the inside into 9. He hasn't got the momentum, and Piringer versus Phillips, well, you couldn't ask for a better battle right now as they make their way through turn number 10 and head up towards 11. That's Gaz Williams just up the road. He will come up behind these guys when they pitted, and look in the rearview camera, that's Andrew Jacklin, who's yet to pit in P6, just soldiering on his way right now, as we do see Piringer under huge pressure from the Bentley of Harry Phillips. The Wild Things Racing driver going head to head with the Jochen Schweizer, powered by BMW lead driver there, and both of them not giving an inch right now. They both want what is effectively P3 come the end of this race as they make their way through turn number 15 once again and onto the Wellington Straight. But meanwhile, up ahead, we can see Prendergast here. The gap between himself and Andres Mesa holding at the moment just above 3 seconds. That last time around from Prendergast, of course, that was his outlap, so that's not an accurate indicator of what his lap pace is. But meanwhile, Andres Mesa pushing as much as he possibly can. That last lap from Andres Mesa, 2:04.863. He is flying right now as we look back to our battle for P4, as it's the case that Gaz Williams is still not coming to the pits. He's going all the way to the conclusion. I can also tell you in the battle for P15 right now, we've got Eduardo Tripiana still leading Daniel Tran and Adrian Loisinger. We will look at that again in a minute. But meanwhile, whilst this is going on here, you have to imagine that for Phillips right now, he'll be trying to invent a way to get past the BMW that just seems to have an answer for everything he can do other than the run from turn 7 to turn 8. And that's where Piringer is having to really hold hard to the inside. As you see there, Phillips just weaving a little bit off the race in line compared to Piringer. He's got a lot more roll in the body of the car there, has Phillips, as they make their way around and as they come charging down towards what is Stowe. Again, I can tell you that the battle for P15 has separated out to an extent. Hold on a second. What on earth's happened here? We have seen Prendergast. Prendergast has dropped down to P2. I'm not sure what's happened here, ladies and gentlemen. We just saw it briefly on our timing screens. I think Prendergast had gone off the circuit, or there's been an incident of some description, because that is Andres Mesa right now, who is leading this race with 6 minutes to go, and the gap between him and Prendergast is 2 seconds. The gap is small, and we can see there as well the fact that Adrian Loisinger right now is ahead of Daniel Tran. I'm wondering if there's been an incident between a back marker and Prendergast which has triggered this off, or whether Prendergast has just made a mistake. But Loisinger is ahead of Tran, and the big shock is that Mesa is ahead of Prendergast here. There's only 2 seconds between the two of them, and Prendergast right now will be looking to come back as quickly as possible here. As meanwhile, whilst they make their way down through turn number 16, it's Piringer who's still holding off Phillips here as they make their way along. And we look behind here from Piringer's car, 5 minutes to go. For these guys, it's effectively 3 more laps of racing. And you can imagine that at this point, I think Phillips might be backing it off a little bit and thinking about going for it on the last lap. As they make their way through here, the left-hander, and as they do so, is the case coming into the right-hander at turn 17. Phillips able to get so close through the corners, and you can see that dry line forming as well on the circuit as well. We do still have some rainfall out there, but not enough anymore to keep the tyres as cool as they were previously, and this will be hurting all of our drivers as they make their way through. And Kieran Prendergast has definitely had something happen on his last lap. That was a 2:11.5 versus Andres Mesa's 2:06.3. But focusing on the battle for P4 here, you can see that Piringer doing everything he can right now, as it's Andrew Jacklin who's come into the pits from what was P6. And where is he going to come out in all of this? Well, he's making his way along right now. We've got Ant Brown here who's got Fabio Chiena chasing after him. They both make their way through here for P7 and P8, gaining that off of Andrew Jacklin. And what about Marcus Fox? Well, Fox is making his way through what is the final corner and across that timing line, and I believe Jacklin is still in his pit box here, so Jacklin is going to fall down to P10. The next driver to come through would be Paco Lara, but Lara is a long way back. I think Andrew Jacklin is going to be coming out in P10 when this is all done. He comes out the pits, and that is P10 right now for Jacklin as he re-emerges with 4 minutes to go. But meanwhile, we look back up to our battle here for P4 for the time being, and as they come on through, you can see it's Piringer versus Phillips, and it continues as they come through turn number 10, and we see that's Pastoris running very wide off the corner, and I think it's the case that Piringer and Phillips also trying to follow suit, both trying to get the toe off of the driver ahead of them as they come through turn number 11 and up into 12, and as they sweep their way in here, it is the case. You can see Piringer furiously flashing the lights here. He does not want anybody in his way right now. He wants somebody to move out his way and get in the way of Phillips, but Phillips is so close to his backside here, you can almost reach out and touch the rear spoiler as they make their way through what is turn number 14, and you see Phillips pushing everything as Daniel Tran will drive-through penalty, and I believe this may be what we've been waiting to understand what's happened. A drive-through penalty for car 48. That's Daniel Tran, and that is for what is contact to car 24. That was Kieran Prendergast. So there was contact between Daniel Tran and Prendergast, and that explains why the lead has changed. Andres Mesa was not in that, of course, and was able to gain resultingly. As we see here, Andres Mesa 1.9 seconds ahead for the time being, and continuing to hold on to that position right now in P P1, and it's in the rear view picture there. We have got Prendergast chasing after him, but meanwhile looking back to our battle for what is P4 as we're still waiting for Gaz Williams to pit. Surely he's going to be pitting on the penultimate lap, the final opportunity to pit. He's 5 seconds up the road from these guys as they make their way on through, and you can see that Piringer right now will just be praying. He'll be hoping that Phillips just seems to lose some pace, because Phillips seems to always be there. But of course, Piringer does have an answer for everything Phillips has been able to do, but will it be enough? That is the question. Or will we see some magic from the Wild Things Racing driver as they come down the hanger straight once again? I don't think he's close enough this time, but we'll wait to see as they come through turn 7. And you can see that I think Piringer's gone a little bit deep through 7. In fact, this is giving Phillips... Oh, goodness me, there's some contact there. And what Phillips is trying to do, I think he's trying to squeeze Piringer to the inside as they make their way through. Phillips is not giving this one up. He's staying on that inside, whether they like it or not. And as they come through turn number 9 and up into 10, Phillips, with the one mistake from Piringer, has made the move. As they come through 10 and down towards 11, you can see Piringer flashing his lights here. But I think in Phillips' mind, he's thinking, well, you know what? I've had to get my elbows out to get the move done. It was needed. And as they make their way through turn number 11, you can see that Phillips is now starting to make a small breakaway here as Jochen Schweizer driver here looks for a move on the inside, but he's too far back. I think it's more intimidation rather than an actual move trying to be made. 1.5 minutes to go. They've got one more lap, these two, and we will see if they come back together shortly as they make their way on to the Wellington Straight. Meanwhile, I can tell you in the battle for the lead, Andres Mesa, as he's gone on to his final lap, is leading by 2.6 seconds and opening that gap up every little bit as he comes around onto the final lap of the race to go on to lap number 36. And with 1 minute to go, this will be the final lap, and that last lap 4/10 of a second faster than Prendergast. He has opened that gap up and he continues to do so lap after lap as we believe that Gaz Williams is into the pits. And where is he going to come out in all of this? We will wait and see as Phillips has started to clear Piringer. And meanwhile, further down the order, Ulrich right now, who I believe will be coming up to inherit P5 as he makes his way through turn number 18. And for Ulrich right now, I must imagine that this is a very rewarding race for him as he comes across that timeline. He will take the P5 position. What about Brown? Meanwhile, Brown has got Kiena closing up to the back of him, and we can see there that just be further back, we have got the likes of Fox coming through as Fox makes his way out of the corner. Now, Williams, I can tell you, as Fox is into the pits here with a last-minute pit stop for Marcus Fox, and this is a disaster for Fox. Has something gone wrong with the car? Is he out of fuel? Something has gone horribly wrong, but Gaz Williams has come out of the pits effectively in P8 when all is said and done. But meanwhile, as they make their way around right now, they come onto the second half of the lap, and you can see the gap between Mesa and Prendergast only 2.5 seconds, but it's stabilised or increasing, and this is all due to one little moment between Prendergast and the back marker of Tran as they make their way through turn number 13 right now. Meanwhile, in the battle for P3, I can tell you that Harry Phillips has got a gap right now of 0.7 of a second, and he seems to be holding it against Piringer for the time being as they make their way through. And Andre Jacklin into the pits. We've got drivers left, right and centre coming into the pits here. I'm not sure what's happened, but Jacklin into the pits. That is a surprise to be sure. But I'll tell you one thing that will be a little bit of a surprise for him, but the most relieving one of any of our drivers right now as he comes up to the final pair of corners. He saw it fall apart at the start. He dropped down the order and had to make a recovery drive, but unlike the previous race, it wasn't to go to the disaster. He was going to bring it back in the end. It will be Andres Mesa who becomes a two-time winner in this season as he crosses the line as the winner of round 5. Kieran Prendergast in P2 in the end, ruined what could have been. And meanwhile, Harry Phillips, as he comes through turn number 17, it won't have been the race he would have wanted. It's been up and down, but he'll still be happy, I think, with that podium as he comes through the final corner to take P3. Behind him, Ralph Piringer just missing out on the podium there in P4, and then Martin Ulrich rounding off our top 5 here with a brilliant drive from the M Technology driver. He was silent but subtle, and as he comes on through, that is a P5 for the Mercedes driver. Behind him, Ant Brown will take his season best, a P6, the Code Brown machine, and Fabio Chiena a season best as well of a P7, as Gazza Williams in the end, making a major recovery drive, has come all the way back to P8, having dropped down to the bottom of the order. And then behind them, it is Paco Lara, who, having made the pit stop very early on, in fact, the earliest driver to pit, pitting at the end of lap lap 1. I believe it will be Paco Lara who comes home in P9 when all is said and done as he makes his way here through turn 16. It has been a very, very long race for the Prototype Racing Team driver, and it has not worked out the way we would have liked it. I think he's also been involved in some contact due to the damage on the front of the car, but in the end, the Spaniard does come across the line in a top 10 once again. That consistency really shining through for Lara here as he comes across the line, and then it's going to be a P10 for Andre Jacqueline. Well, he wanted higher than P10, but for the Food Point Racing driver today, it is going to be a P10 precisely, and I still think he'll be happy with this one, all things considered, as he comes across the timing line to take the checkered flag for his race. And then further back, we have got Chris McKenna here, the Distinct GG driver, who we haven't seen too much of over the course of the race today, but whilst he has not been observed too much, one thing we can observe is he's just finished outside the top 10 in P11, but a good drive from the Briton in the Bentley as he comes on through. And those shock stops at the end, I think, helping him out to an extent, as we do see that Marcus Fox with that last minute second pit stop coming home in P12, not to be his day. But that concludes our race, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be back shortly for post-race interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, without further ado, after what was a very tricky race, let's hear from our podium finishers. Of course, starting with our race winner, that was Andres Mesa, come the end and the checker flag at Silverstone. Hello, Andres, can you hear me?
Yes, Paul. Hi.
Andres, congratulations on the win, your second win of the season. How does it feel to have taken the win at Silverstone?
It feels very good, thank you. Finally.
It's been a while since we've seen you on the top step. Some races not working out, but it was to be your day today. But starting off with qualifying, a very strong lap in qualifying.
Yeah, thank you. I knew I could put a good time, and I think at the end of it I was coming a bit faster, but I went on the brakes on the curb, and that wasn't a good idea.
And in translating from qualifying to the race itself, starting on pole, were you hoping to hold on to the lead at the start, or was it the case you suspected that Prendergast would have the faster start in the Ferrari? Because he did come around the outside of you quite early on into turn one.
I was hoping to be able to hold the lead, but nah. The Ferrari is much quicker on the start, and he just overtook me. Fair play to him.
And then later in the race, we saw, particularly in the opening 15 minutes, just how close and relentless you were in pursuing Prendergast. Was the idea to make an early move on him as soon as possible, or was it more a case just putting him under that pressure because you were running very close?
Yeah, I wanted to get past, but it was it was very difficult. We had a couple of contacts, and that spin we had. Yeah, I should have been more patient, to be fair.
But still, fantastic racing between the two of you. And then after that spin, we saw a completely different beast be unleashed from yourself. Just take us through what was going through your mind at that point, because we saw lap after lap. I think you were doing relentlessly. It started off with low 205s. Then I think there was a period where you just would not stop setting 204s for about 6 or 7 laps in a row. You were you were flying.
Yeah, that was the best part of the race for me. It was just after I passed Harry. Yeah, I just got into in the mood, I guess. Yeah.
And I do have to ask, I remember a little while back when we were talking about Monza, you were saying in our pre-race discussion about you didn't want to see the back of Harry's Bentley where possible. When you came up behind Harry, did you have that sort of mindset like a ball to a cape with regards to just wanting to get past?
Oh yeah, I was thinking, oh, here he come again. But it was a bit of a dive bomber. He left the door open. I think it was a fair move.
Oh, definitely. At least from what we saw, it was a fair move. And then coming from that move to your pursuit of the lead, just take us through the strategy, because we saw you pit with I think it was about 12 minutes to go. Was the idea to go for the undercut, or were you just at a point where you felt as though you had to pit?
I had to pit. I could have done maybe just one more lap, but I saw a bug marker in front of us, and I decided to come in. But also I knew, Prendergast's stop was going to be very quick because he was going longer.
And then come the end, when you came out the pits and saw that there was the 3.5 second gap between yourself and Prendergast, was it at that point that you were still in that mindset of trying to close it down, or was it one of those situations where you thought, okay, take the P2 today, I'm still going to finish ahead of Phillips come the end of it?
I was still trying to push as much as I could and put some pressure, but without that incident, I think Prendergast would have got the win, definitely. It was not nice to see that incident with the bump marker.
It's very unfortunate. Whilst we didn't capture it on screen, we heard about it through the stewards, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it from Kieran himself very shortly. But coming back to yourself, having picked up this second win, it feels as though your championship charge is now back on. How are you feeling in the build up towards Alton Park in a week's time?
Well, Feeling good. It's a great feeling. What can I say? I think we'll see a Harry very, very strong at Alton Park. I'm not sure what my pace will be there.
Well, we do look forward to seeing you take to the Alton Park circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations once again on the win at Silverstone. A brilliant drive from yourself.
Thank you very much, Paul.
There we just heard from Andres Mesa, who was telling us, of course, about his experience there. And indeed, I think, as you were saying there, the happiest moment in the race, or the most spectacular moment of this race, just that utter pace after the contact between himself and Kieran Prendergast, seeing him go in to what was the grassy area on the exit of turns 8 and 9, and then just the beast was unleashed. And it's the case, Andres Mesa showing that spirit to come back and absolutely fly when it is required. And of course, inheriting from the difficulties that Prendergast had with regards to a back marker towards the end of the race. And now we will come on to speaking to our P2 driver, that is Kieran Prendergast, very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's bring in Kieran Prendergast. Hello, Kieran, can you hear me?
Hello. Can you? Yeah, I can hear you.
Brilliant. Kieran, difficult day in the end at the race, and I appreciate emotions must be running quite high at the moment. Not the result you wanted.
No. It's racing at the end of the day, isn't it? I don't know what to say really. I mean, I tried my best to get myself the win. You know, the strategy and stuff all went to plan, and then when that happens, it kind of puts a dampener on your day, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Understandable, but taking things a step back and look into the positives, qualifying very close between yourself and Andres Mesa for pole. In the end, you missing out by only a couple attempts. Just take us through the qualifying session, because you seem to be the measure of Mesa for most of it.
Quali was good, to be fair. I knew that Mesa was actually quicker than me prior to quali in free practice. He looked really good. So I decided to just send it in quali. I set my PB in the rain in quali as well, to be fair. And I couldn't go any faster after once I had my final stint as well. So it was tough. Yeah, but I was kind of pleased with my quali result, to be fair, because I wasn't expecting pole, because I knew Mesa would get pole in the end.
I see, and then translating from quali to the race, line up alongside the Aston Martin driver. At the start, we saw a huge start from yourself, and making the move for the lead into turn 1. Was the idea to overtake and break away?
Yeah, that was the idea, to get ahead after turn 1, because it's really hard to pass around here in the wet, especially if you know how to defend as well. So, yeah, I thought I'd get the measure of him in turn 1 and in the start as well, and it kind of for me it paid off throughout the whole of the race, because all I had to do was just keep that gap, keep him behind, add the pressure as well. But yeah, tried my best, didn't I?
Definitely, and a brilliant battle between yourself and Andres in the opening laps. A little bit of door-to-door contact, but I think all's fair in love and war, as they say. But after that, of course, with Mesa dropping down the field, did your strategy change at that point because you didn't have that pressure on you, or was it still the case that you were on the same strategy as before?
It was the same strategy throughout the whole race, to be fair. I wanted to go long, and I ran really heavy as well. I ran a full tank throughout the race, so I knew I wasn't going to be that good at the start, because I knew like Phillips and Mesa were probably running a bit lighter than me. But it paid off. When I came out of the pits, I was 4 seconds ahead, or 3 seconds ahead, I believe. And yeah.
And then we do have to come on to it, but very lightly, whilst we didn't see it on camera, the instant between yourself and I think it was Daniel Tran, the back marker. Just take us through, from your perspective, what happened. We weren't able to catch it on screen.
I think what happened was the blue flags weren't respected, in my opinion. I'd been flashing him a couple corners beforehand. I could understand that you're fighting for a position and stuff, and you know, you don't want to lose as much points. But when I look back on the replay, sort of going towards that chicane or that left-hander, he let me pass, but what he was doing is he was still feathering the throttle and like dragging onto the brakes. So ultimately what happened, he sort of skated wide through that left-hander and then ran into me as well, which is a shame because it ruined my race. And yeah, I just felt like the rules of the blue flag weren't respected enough, in my opinion. So yeah.
Well, I do think the stewards might have a little bit of work cut out for them come post-race, but still, that's for them to deal with. But on the upside, still a P2 in the end of it, and definitely well inside the podium, and really reigniting the championship charge that we saw from yourself earlier on in the series. Looking forward to Alton Park in a week's time. How do you feel for another British circuit?
Hopefully I can get another good result like today. Even though I lost the lead sort of couple laps towards the end, I'll take P2. Hopefully Alton Park we can transfer this into another good result and possibly a win as well. So yeah, I'm feeling positive for Alton Park.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, despite it not being the result you wanted today, congratulations on the second place all the same, and we look forward to seeing you at the Alton Park circuit in a week's time.
Cheers, Paul.
So Kieran Prendergast there, hearing from our second place finisher in the end. Mixed emotions, a day of mixed emotions. Great pace shown by him and on the strategy as well, saying they're running on a full tank of fuel throughout the race distance and going as long as possible. Of course, the contact between himself and Andres Mesa was a little bit of a race change moment, with Mesa then having to make the recovery drive, but I think both drivers have sorted that out between them, or at least that's what we would understand. And then later on, of course, the incident between Prendergast and Daniel Tran there, trying to go past the back marker of Daniel Tran. Tran, of course, been in that freeway battle between Eduardo Trippiama himself and also Adrian Loisinger for P15. I think the stewards have got something to look at there, but you could hear the upbeat in the end from Prendergast in his voice with regards to looking forward to Alton Park, and the fact that despite losing out in the win today, another solid performance. And definitely, I think, given we've got 3 rounds remaining, let's see how far Prendergast could go, because I think he could find himself very nicely in between Phillips and Mesa, if not outdoing the pair of them at the races to go. But we'll have to wait and see about that. But now we must come on to our P3 man, and that is Harry Phillips. As we just bring him shortly into the interview room. Hello, Harry. Can you hear me?
Evening, Paul. Loud and clear.
Brilliant. Harry, 3rd place today at Silverstone. How do you feel?
Yep, that's what I wanted. That's all I needed. That's all I could get, realistically. I really wasn't feeling the car today. Didn't feel very good in the wet. But yeah, 3rd. That's all I wanted. And it feels good.
And dialing it back, in qualifying, we saw you right up there battling for the 2nd row. Was qualifying how you expected it to be? Because we did have some very fast charges in there, the likes of Ant Brown. We also had Gaz Williams.
Yeah, there was... People were really picking up the pace today, and it was getting pretty close. I tried really hard to get the lap time I got, which I think was still about 3-4 tenths off pole. But it was enough for 3rd, and that was what I was aiming for. I was aiming for 3rd place, but it was pretty tricky. Williams as well. He's just joined the championship, hasn't he, since Monza?
Since Monza.
The pace he's got is absolutely fantastic. It's great to see. It's good to have someone fast in the Bentley come up so I can benchmark myself.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And then translating into the race, we saw a rather subtle start from yourself. A good battle for P3 at the start. Just take us through what happened in the first half of the race, because it was quite up and down between yourself and some of the other drivers around you.
Yeah, so I was going to see if I could try and take 1st place, but Mesa and Prendergast were really fighting quite hard, and they were for a while. And then I made the mistake where I missed a brake marker going into the hairpin in the 2nd or last sector. I decided to just throw it off track so I didn't take anyone out there, either Mesa or Prendergast. And then I lost quite a few places there, but I managed to fight my way back. Yeah, the first stint was... It was quite... not sure heartbreaking is the word, but seeing everyone else just flying away into the distance, everyone, and I think it was there was an Aston behind me that was catching up as well, but yeah, I wasn't very fast today, but it was until the very last part of the race where things start to pick up again.
Oh, most definitely. And coming into the last part of the race, a brilliant battle between yourself and Ralph Piringer for the best part of what must have been at least 10 laps. And in the end, had to get the elbows out to get the move done, but very close and fair racing between you two.
Yep, that was, I mean, he made that mistake going around the right-hander, and that was it. That was the only chance I was going to get. I don't know if it was obvious from the spectator, but I could not get a run on that car. That BMW is just, it's a rocket ship out of the corners, and it's a rocket ship on the straights. And then every time I get into the braking zone, I'm right up the backside again. I really did rely on him making a mistake just to get that move done. I stuck it around the outside. I was really rigid in my line. I wasn't going to budge my line. I knew that I needed to take that not very narrow, but not completely wide line, just to shoot myself over around the outside and get the inside for the next corner. It worked out in the end, and yeah, that was a really good fight we had.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, and we did indeed catch it all. And one thing that we were observing was that every time you seemed to get close enough to look at a move, Piringer just seemed to have, as you say, just that edge in the BMW to keep you at bay. And it was that one mistake that was the difference between you two and you latching on. And having had that battle, and now looking ahead to Alton Park in a week's time, how are you feeling for another British circuit?
I'm just hoping we don't get British weather again. But yeah, Alton Park, a favourite. It's such an amazing track. The British tracks, I love all of them, to be honest. Silverstone, not so much in the wet, as you can probably tell. But yeah, they're all fantastic. I can't wait for next week.
Well, we look forward to seeing you take to the Alton Park circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on the 3rd place, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Here and there from Harry Phillips, who finished 3rd today, and pleased in the end with that result, and I think relishing in the battle with Ralph Piringer for P3 in the final few laps. But indeed, one of those days where I think he's just had to target P3 and get the best possible result he could rather than look for the potential win. And as he was saying there, not quite heartbreaking, but I think I know that feeling that he's describing. It's a little bit downheartening, I would say, when the people around you seem to just have more pace and you end up in a race where you're not really racing for the win, you're racing for a lower position. You always want to set your sights as high as possible, and definitely with Phillips wanting to take the championship lead from Andres Mesa, that lead has opened up slightly because of the way the results have stood today, but we'll wait and see how it all plays out once again at Alton Park in a week's time. So with that, that concludes our post-race interviews, and with it, our night of racing. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you do want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community and what we do and the series we run, or even potentially want to join the series we run, then why not check us out on our NXTGEN Racing website. That's www.nextgenracing.co.uk, or alternatively on our Facebook group. That's NXTGEN Racing on facebook.com/groups. Also, a huge thank you to our partners of the SimGrid, that's thesimgrid.com, and Coach Dave Academy, coachdavecademy.com, because without them it would not be possible for us to bring you this series. But until next time, in a week's time, when we take to the British circuit of Alton Park on October the 12th, the same time as per usual, we have to wonder, with only 3 rounds to go, how many more twists in the tail will there be? Will we have British weather? Will we have sunshine? You'll have to wait and find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we have been NXTGEN Racing. This has been the European GT3 Series for 2021 Season 2, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.